Dr. Pepper.
Please go ahead and find your seats, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to start. We're going to close the doors in just a moment. You're free to come and go as you need to during the program, so it's not like we won't let you leave. But we will be closing the doors and quieting down in just a moment so that we can begin our program today. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. If you happen to watch me on TV for 35 years, thank you very much. If you've never seen me before, my name is Mike Royer, and I was on TV here in Birmingham for a few decades. Some of you were just little girls when I came to town. We're glad you're here tonight. Your presence shows that you care about your wonderful community. Everyone knows Hoover, the 6th largest city in our state. It's a wonderful community with wonderful schools and great businesses, and I know you're proud of your community. And I know that you want every election to be conducted well and for all of the voters to be well informed, and we're glad that you're here. And we know that all of us are on the same page. Whoever you support in each race, we're on the same page. We just want Hoover to continue to grow and be a great city like it already is. So we welcome you tonight, and we're glad you're here. We have some business to conduct and some things to tell you about before we get to our questions this evening. But we're going to do two things before we start. We're going to have a word of prayer, and then we're going to say a pledge to our flag. I'd like to ask, first of all, Rachel Gagne, the pastor of the Hoover First United Methodist Church, to please come and lead us in prayer tonight.
Will you join me in prayer? Gracious God, our loving Creator and the source of our life, as we gather this evening, we are grateful to live in this country where we can exercise our right to vote and therefore have the opportunity to shape the community in which we live. We're grateful for all those who serve this community in various ways, from the first responders, police, and firefighters to the teachers, staff, and administrators in our school system. And tonight we are most grateful for those who are willing to step forward and run for elected office. We ask your blessing on each candidate here. Although we may have differences and disagreements on how to accomplish the work before us, teach us again that we are united by our love for this community and by our care for one another. During this time of discussion, as questions are asked and answered, help us each to listen deeply with an openness of mind and spirit. And might we know your blessing resting on our community. We pray all these things knowing that your Spirit is ever present and at work in this world. Amen.
I'd like to ask you all to please stand and face the flag. I've asked my friend Paul DeMarco to please come forward. He will face the flag as well and lead us in a pledge to our flag.
Please face the flag. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, folks. You may be seated. As you likely know by now, our election day is coming up, August the 23rd. The polls will open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. In the state of Alabama, you are required to present a photo ID when you vote. Everyone votes for the mayor, of course, and then all 7 places of city council, they are running at large, as you know. We want to thank our sponsors for our event tonight, the Hoover City Schools Foundation. The Hoover City School Foundation, founded in 1992, was founded to support Hoover City schools by funding enhanced academics through grants and innovative programs. The foundation is the only entity that supports all 17 schools in Hoover. Approximately $750,000 has been granted to schools and teachers since the foundation was created. Also thanks tonight to the Hoover Rotary Club. The club is, of course, a civic organization serving the city of Hoover since 1977. The club is comprised of community members, businessmen and women, and civic-minded individuals. Over the years, the Hoover Rotary Club has given more than $250,000 to students and schools in Hoover in the form of scholarships and grants. The club meets on Wednesdays from noon to 1 p.m. at the Hoover Country Club. I want to thank the Hoover Sun tonight. The Sun, of course, is a monthly community newspaper focused on the city of Hoover, with the print edition that's mailed free of charge to more than 22,000 homes and businesses in Hoover every month. The publication, published by Starnes Publishing, a local publishing company, follows a 24/7 news cycle online at hooversun.com. Additionally, a morning email with up-to-date news is sent Monday through Friday mornings to nearly 6,000 subscribers. We want to thank the Hyatt Regency of Birmingham, the Winfrey Hotel, for donating this space tonight for us to use. We want to thank the Hoover Bells, always an important presence at any event in Hoover. We want to thank the Hoover City Schools Foundation Student Board and the Hoover High School Broadcast Department, who's doing the audio-visual or the visual segments of our program tonight, mostly done by students under the leadership of Jeff Lloyd, and they do a great job. Thanks for the entertaining music as you visited outside from the the Hoover High School Jazz Combo. They sounded great. And the community for taking the time to get to know the candidates and to be here. As I said, your presence speaks to your concerns and your caring for the city of Hoover, and we're glad that each one of you has joined us tonight. We will start our forum this evening with questions for the council candidates and then end up with the candidates for mayor. We will call one group forward at a time. They will come to these podiums in the middle. In races where there are 3 or 2, they will come to these podiums in the middle. I will ask them a question, and our panel over to the other side of the stage that I'll introduce in a moment will ask questions as well. The candidates will answer the questions throughout the evening from Janet Turner of the Hoover School Foundation. Everyone knows Janet. Raise your hand, Janet. So they distinguish you from the other 2 gentlemen here. I don't think we had a problem with that at all. Matthew Allen of the Hoover Rotary Club. Matthew. And of course, John Anderson, who many of you know, with the Hoover Sun. It's good to have all of you here with your questions tonight. We will ask 4 questions per candidate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. Some of the questions will be repeated often. I'll be asking similar questions to many of the candidates tonight. Some of the questions have been received from the community, and all have been vetted by our panel tonight. There will be no questions directly from the audience during this forum tonight. We'll ask our candidates to answer the questions in a timely manner. Try not to mention your opponent in your answers. If you do, the person that you mention by name will be allowed 30 seconds to respond to whatever you might have said about your opponent. There will be a 5-minute break for the candidates about 7:30. We'll go through most of the council candidates. We'll take a break at 7:30 just for the candidates to take a quick break and come right back in. We'd ask you to remain seated. But again, throughout the entire program, you're free to come and go as you please. Slip out as quietly as you can and come right back. There's no rules about moving around. Us old folks appreciate that rule. Now, assuming that we stay on schedule, we should be finished with our questions for the candidates around 8:30. And at that time, each candidate, the mayoral candidates and the council candidates, will each have 1 minute just to say a closing remark, a closing summation of what they'd like you to leave here knowing about them and thinking about them tonight. The forum will end, we hope, by 9 p.m. Candidates are encouraged to stay and mingle with the community as long as they would like and as long as you'd like to visit with them. So audience, we'd ask you to be respectful of the candidates as they speak. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phone or turn it off completely. And we'd ask that you hold your applause until the end. And as we said, and I will repeat, let's be respectful of everyone participating tonight. We will start with place 1 for the City Council of Hoover. We'll ask the candidates in place 1 to please come forward. Trey Lott, Kurt Posey, and Joe Reeves. Come either way you want, down and up. And we walk in front of the table. That might be a little. Take your time. Just come right up here and find your place at the front. As we ask the questions, we'll rotate the order that we ask the questions of the candidates. I'll begin by asking this question. I'd like to ask all three of you to answer. Trey Lott first, then Kurt Posey, then Joe Reeves. And my question is, what would be your top priority as a council member? Mr. Lott. Oh, I forgot the opening statement. Thank you, Janet. Before you answer that question, 2 minutes is yours. I apologize for forgetting that. Go right ahead. 2 minutes to say whatever you'd like.
Not to answer the question.
Not to answer the question yet. That was my mistake. My pay will be docked accordingly.
I'm Dr. Trey Lott. Been a Hoover resident for 39 years. Lived in 3 different neighborhoods with my wife. Have 3 children and 4 grandchildren under the age of 5. I'm a conservative. It's very important to me that we maintain fiscal responsibility in the city. We've done that since I took office 12 years ago. We kept a balanced budget, which is extremely important. We're very strong in public safety. We kept you safe. Protecting the money we've had. We helped build a senior citizen center and made that an example for other cities. We have the 2nd best library in the country, one of the best police departments and fire departments in the state, and we'll continue to do that. But you have to do that by having a balanced budget. And that's what we do. That's what fiscal responsibility is. You can't just take money and move it around because there is no tree with money on it. Thank you.
My name is Kurt Posey and I'm running for place 1. I am a lifelong Hoover resident and a product of the Hoover City School System. As a graduate from Hoover High School in 1995, I too was a student in the broadcasting department, and that led to my career, which started on television and moved to the private sector in Children's Hospital of Alabama. My focus for running is that I grew up under the administration of Frank Skinner, where we moved forward, it seemed like, endlessly. And I feel like what we've done is we've hit a brick wall, and we've stopped, and we are expecting people to come to us rather than moving the city forward. I want to see Hoover grow. I want to see our school system grow. I want my children to have the things that I had growing up. I want your children to have the same. But the most important thing to me is communication, which is what my degree is in. Because this is not my city, and it's not your city, it's our city. And we've got to foster the growth of this city and the future of this city together. Thank you.
First, thank you to the Hoover Sun and to the Hoover City Schools Foundation and the Hoover Rotary Club for hosting tonight's forum. I'm Joe Reeves, and I currently serve in place 1 on the Hoover City Council, and will be honored to continue to serve as your representative over the next 4 years. Prior to being appointed to the City Council in February of 2015, I served on the Hoover Board of Zoning Adjustment and the Planning and Zoning Commission. My wife Bonnie and I have been married for 51 years and have spent almost 46 of those years living in Hoover. I was formerly Director of Information Technology with Bell South Telecommunications in Hoover. We love living and working in Hoover. I currently serve as a volunteer with the Habitat for Humanity, income tax preparation for low and middle income families through the AARP Foundation, and the Region's Tradition Golf Tournament. I also serve as an elder and chair of the Mission Commission with the Shades Valley Presbyterian Church. Helping people is part of my calling. As a current member of the City Council, I am responsible to all 87,000 citizens of Hoover. I am not a single-issue candidate. I believe each citizen expects and should receive outstanding city services, that is, police and fire protection, schools and library, public works, garbage pickup, parks and recreation, and the senior center. My main job, working with the mayor, other council members, and the city departments, is to make sure you receive outstanding service in all these areas, while also being very responsible steward of your tax dollars. Very soon after being appointed to the council, I met with every director for the city to understand the full responsibility and needs of each department. I have attended every council meeting during my tenure. I'm a champion of the Hoover sports. Is that it?
That's it on time. You'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about other things as you continue, Mr. Reeves.
Good.
And I would just remind you all, these are our timers here. Hold up your cards. You'll first see this yellow card that says 10 seconds. The other one says time. And we have another sign under the table that you don't even want to see. I follow the time cues if I were you. And the gentleman will say time when your time is up. And I know you all want to respect that. Now, we'll get back to where I wanted to go in the first place and ask that question for all three of you to answer the same question. Let's do it in the same order. And the question was, what would be your top priority if you were elected to the council?
I have several top priorities, and I'm not going to limit to one. That wouldn't be fair. But number one is always public safety, especially in this day. If we don't have public safety, we can't keep you safe, keep your houses protected, we don't have anything in the city. That's always number one. Number two for me is a long-term funding solution for schools. I don't think they have a problem at this point with the amount of reserve fund they have is the highest in the state. They will have a problem in the future, there's no question in my mind. So the solution is what to do. I've looked at several options. You can raise ad valorem tax, only $3.4 million. You can have occupational tax, nobody likes that. Or you can raise up to 1% sales tax, which will raise up to $20 million. That would have to be determined by a combination of city leaders, school leaders, and concerned citizens to figure out what is the best amount. And then we can go from that point. That option should be voted on by you and not just by us, so that you have an interest in it and we make the city one. The third thing that I'm most interested in was maintaining fiscal responsibility. That's the reason we have all the things we have in this city now. That's the reason we have been so good. Sorry,
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Lott. Mr. Posey, remember the answers here are for 1 minute. Mr. Posey, you're next. Same question.
Based on the 1 minute time frame, I would say number one in all-encompassing is strategic planning. Now, what do I mean by that? I do not mean a master plan by itself. I mean strategic planning. When we go to build something, we need to build the roads first and make sure our infrastructure is big enough to handle the subdivisions that we are putting on the other end of them. We also, by having our infrastructure in the right place, we know how many policemen and firemen we need to protect our places where we live, our communities or subdivisions. Strategic planning is far more than that. It's also taking into consideration replacing equipment, replacing fire trucks, replacing cars on time, and still getting that return on investment on the other side. A lot of that is, of course, fiscal responsibility. So I would say that strategic planning is my number one priority when getting in and putting a strategic plan together for you and making sure that our city runs as it should.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. 1 minute, your top priority.
My top priority is to maintain city as #1 city in the state of Alabama and the #28 city in the United States. And we do that by having top police and fire protection, top public works, a top library, top schools in this thing. And that's the main thing I want to do is keep everything right on the top, have a balanced budget and not wasting money on anything.
Thank you. We'll now go to our panel for questions. We'll start with John Anderson with a question, and the order of answering this will be Mr. Posey, then Mr. Reeves, and then Mr. Lott. John?
Mr. Posey, you have talked about increasing funding for Hoover City Schools by moving money. Typically, has been going into the city's capital projects fund. Is it not important for the city to fund capital projects as well? And are there certain planned capital projects you think should be dropped?
It's a great question, John, and absolutely I do think that we need to fund capital projects. We've got several capital projects in this latest budget, in my opinion, that we should have funded, one of which being replacing a 1984 ladder truck that we painted instead of replacing. As far as moving things around, I look at a budget as we've got to first invest in our people and our programs. That's our city services, that's things in the general fund, and then move over to the capital fund. But anything that's too far out, that's 10 years or more out, that we do not see is going to get developed, I don't think we need to fund it. I think we need to think about it. And we need to look at those projects and see if they're actually in need or want. And those are the projects I want to look at cutting, and things that are in there that we've never touched, we haven't looked at. There's an HOP lane in there that I'm going, well, how are we going to do that? We haven't done that in a while. Things like that is what I want to cut. I don't want to cut, I want to be clear, I do not want to cut anything that has to do with public safety. I know you'll hear it a lot. I want to put it out there tonight on the record. That is not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. All the candidates answered this question, correct, Ken? No, we go on to the next question. This is a question for Mr. Reeves from John.
Mr. Reeves, you voted to rezone 273 acres along Interstate 459 from apartment use to mostly commercial use, and property owners were against this. The land has been zoned for apartments for decades. It's unusual for the city to initiate rezoning of someone else's property. Can you explain why you voted in favor of that change?
Yes. As a representative of the city of Hoover, I felt like that it was the thing to do for the benefit of the city of Hoover. It will reduce the number of children going to the schools from not having those apartments there. But the main thing is to make the city of Hoover better by having it zoned as C2, which is commercial, rather than apartments, R4.
Now another question from John for Mr. Lott.
Dr. Lott, you resigned from the city council in January 2016 and moved to Alabaster so your son could play football there. And some people have questioned your attendance record at city council meetings when you were on the council. How do you respond to those who question your commitment to the city and your commitment to fulfill the obligations of the job in the next 4 years?
I'll be hanging around with my son. Will be at Choked, one of the top prep schools in the country, and then he'll be at Yale. So that's why I moved, to give him an opportunity to have a much better education, also to play football at a higher level. So the move worked out great. The only reason we moved out of the city was that Spain, the High School Athletic Association ruled him ineligible to play at Spain Park because the previous coach, his previous private coach, had moved to Spain Park. Otherwise, we would have been at Spain Park his senior year. But he had a great year at Thompson, and as soon as we could, we moved back to the city. No reason for me to leave other than for a child. He's in school, so I won't be leaving anymore. I've been here 39 years. It's the best city in the state, one of the best in the country, and I'll be here. Attendance, 80%. I'd like to be a few points higher. If you're a physician, you're going to be called away on emergencies times. Sometimes you're sick, sometimes you take vacation. I can say one thing, that we know ahead of time we're going to have a really crucial vote. I've never missed a crucial vote. Sometimes it's bookkeeping, I might miss one vote. But I'll still be there, I'll be there 10 years from now. So, hopefully. Thank you.
All right, we now move to Janet Turner with questions for the candidate. First question is for Mr. Reeves.
Mr. Reeves, this question is from Kathy Benton in Hoover. Creating a master plan that focuses on sustainable growth, utilizing current infrastructure, preserving green space, increasing walkability, and creating multi-use areas. All of these would benefit the entire city. Do you support this idea?
Yes, I do. And in fact, I believe that's what is in the current master plan for the city.
Next, for a question for Mr. Lott.
Mr. Lott, this is from Linda Chastain in Bluff Park. If the city increases funding for the schools, where will the money come from? New taxes, cutbacks in other departments, or reserve funds?
Well, we're not going to cut back from other departments because we're all here to pay Paul. That doesn't work. I already discussed my plan for the sales tax. I think that's our best option because we raise, like I said, anywhere up to $20 million. But like I said, that depends on. You have to do that judiciously because the city depends on sales tax. And typically the schools depend on ad valorem. But the ad valorem tax is near its max. The state has cut back on school funding, so we're going to have other options for the future. I still think the sales tax will be the best option in the future. But again, it has to be done judiciously, and has to be done putting all the different parties together to see what the actual amount would be.
Now, third question for Mr. Posey from Janet Turner.
This is an anonymous question submitted from the community. What ideas do you have to enhance coordination and cooperation among other area communities such as Helena, Vestavia, Pelham, and others?
That is a great question, and that's something that we absolutely have to do, because if we don't work together, how are we expecting each other to grow? One of the things that I've seen, and it was not my idea, it was Casey Middlebrook's idea, was coordinating our garbage pickup service with other cities to save money. I think that would be a great thing that we could do. That way they're running similar routes on different days, and we're all sharing in the cost. The other thing that I've seen that we could actually do within the city is working together and putting services together with the school system, such as legal services. We could use the same law firm and save some money there. But you're absolutely right. We've got to work together to keep these costs down. And these are our neighbors, these are our partners, and we've got to work together with them to grow each and every city in the Birmingham area.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have one more round of questions for you. Matthew Allen will ask these questions, and the first one will go to Trey Lott.
Dr. Lott, this is an anonymous question from the community. It says, Dr. Lott, do you support updates to our codes and ordinances to better address residential and commercial property upkeep that are reasonable and responsible while protecting property rights? Please provide one example of an updated ordinance or code that you would support.
Oh, absolutely support it. I think one of the main problems we see is continuing on the council now that people just let some of their, not everybody, most of the city is great, but there's some homes that continuously come before the council for not taking care of the property. And I think there has to be some more penalties along that line so that they stop doing that. But that would be where I would focus on as far as changing.
Matthew's next question for Kurt Posey.
Mr. Posey, this comes from Brian Robinson. All I hear over and over is that the school system needs more money. Do you as a candidate know what the school system's budget is compared to the city budget? Where will this additional money that goes to the school system be cut from?
Where was it being cut from?
Where would it be cut from?
Okay. Yes, I'm well aware of the differences between the city budget and the school budget. The school budget, the majority of the cost, the 80% of it, comes from in classroom support and instructional support. It's teachers. That's the biggest cost there. With the city, the biggest cost right now is in public safety, where it should be. Where would I cut money? I've been clear. I would like to cut money from capital projects, because I'm always going to invest first in my people and my programs across the board. The school system falls in that people and programs area because it support our kids and support our community. I would cut capital project from the capital projects fund, because a lot of those things are wants. Yes, there are needs, but we have to ascertain between the needs and the wants, and look at the wants and see if that's something that we truly have to have right now.
One final question from Matthew Allen for Mr. Joe Reeves.
This question comes from Lisa Latham. Are you interested in seeing Hoover change its reputation as strictly a sports-driven community? If so, what steps will you take to ensure that the arts have an active role in the life of our city?
The arts have been an area that I think the city of Hoover has been very weak in the past, and that's something that we as a community need to increase. And I realize it will take some funding to do that. It's an area that is competing for dollars, just like the schools, like the library, like the police and fire. So it's just a matter of priorities. And right now, we've not put the priorities on the arts, and we should. I think the library is probably the area that we are putting the greatest emphasis on the arts, and they're doing an outstanding job in that area. But it's a matter of priorities.
Gentlemen, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think they deserve a round of applause here. Thank you, gentlemen. Good to see you. Yes, sir. All of the candidates will come back for 1 minute at the end of our program tonight. We'll ask the candidates for place 2 on the Hoover City Council. So please come forward, Mr. Gene Smith and Mr. Sam Sweeney. you saw the instructions earlier of the timing cards up here. You'll get a 10-second time to show that. You get to choose. You get to choose wherever you'd like to be. All of the microphones work just wherever you're most comfortable. Your opening statement will be 2 minutes, and then when you start answering questions, you'll have 1 minute to answer, but you'll always see time cues of 10 seconds, and then time, and then the gentleman will say time when your time is completely up. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is for place 2. Let's begin with your opening statements. Gene Smith, would you begin, please? You have 2 minutes with an opening statement.
Thank you. Hoover has been a part of me and my family for almost all of our lives. I moved here when I was 6 years old, before there was a city. My parents signed the original petition to form the original township of Hoover. When I was 18, I went to work at the fire department. Retired in 1993 at the rank of captain. Went into business. We've raised our 3 children here successfully within the Hoover City Schools. They've gone on to graduate college and start wonderful families of their own. I was fortunate enough to be elected in 2004, and I'm proud that the citizens have chosen to allow me to remain in this position since. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And Mr. Sweeney, you have 2 minutes as well.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank the sponsors for putting this together for us. A quick show of hands, how many people are ready for the election day? Anybody? A better question would be, how many are ready to see the yard signs go away? They're a little annoying. My name is Sam Sweeney, and I'm running for place 2. I'm a resident of the Bluff Park community. I was born and raised here in Jefferson County, out of Hueytown. I'm a 2006 graduate of UAB. Upon graduation, I went to work for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. I worked there for about a year, and then I was hired on the State Farm, where I've been ever since. I've been married to my beautiful wife, Nicole, for 9 years. And we have 2 sons, ages 5 and 3. My oldest son attends Bluff Park Elementary. We decided to call Hoover our home in December of 2012, so I haven't been here quite as long as Gene. But can anyone guess as to why we chose Hoover as our home? Schools, that's exactly right. Look, this is an exciting time for our city. We have an opportunity in 7 short days to begin to lay the groundwork for what our city will look like in 15 to 20 years from now. I have never witnessed so many residents engaged in an election as we have this year. We have hundreds of people here on a weeknight. So that tells you how in tune with the election everyone is this year. And I hope even after the election that everyone continues to stay engaged, as we need everyone on board moving forward. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you both. Now, as we ask you questions, you'll each have a minute to answer. Pay attention to the time cues. I'll begin with this question for both of you. And Mr. Smith, if you would begin, what do you believe is the greatest challenge facing the city of Hoover today, and how would you address that problem?
I believe that there are 2 issues. One is long-term educational funding, and the other is going to be how it affects financial stability within the city. Both are going to have to occur. In 10 short years, the school system's debt service is going to exceed $25 million a year. This is not something that they can handle on their own. They have some short-term needs as well, both capital and professional. And the next administration is going to have to work on this and find that balance, both within the elected officials of the city, the Board of Education, and the local citizens.
Mr. Sweeney, same question, 1 minute to answer. What is the biggest challenge facing your city, and how do you plan to address it?
There's not many things me and Mr. Smith agree on, but school funding, to me, is the biggest challenge. Let's take a look at the school's financial situation. We currently have $175 million in debt in the school system. Let's also remember that 1 month's expenses for the school system is $13 million. The fact is, the school system is limited as to the revenues that they can receive. They receive federal, state, county tax dollars and what the city council allocates to them. And as we know, it's been $2 billion even for the past several years. And we have educators spending their own money for supplies, resources, education decorations for their classrooms. And we're also at a point where personnel is decreasing, class sizes are going up, programs are being reduced or removed, and our children are the losers in this. We can either choose to do something about it, or we can sit by and hope the problem goes away.
Gentlemen, thank you. We'll continue our questioning now. Janet Turner will begin. Mr. Sweeney, you'll answer first, and Janet begins this round of questions.
I have an anonymous question from the community, and I apologize, it's kind of long, so it's the same question to both of you. The current mayor and council have yet to provide a full and completely transparent view of the sports complex project. Residents know that construction costs will be between $70 and $75 million, and that the city entered into an operating agreement with a Florida-based management firm for 5 years. What specific policies will you adopt to A, provide more transparency to citizens about this project, and B, ensure that a lack of transparency is prevented in the future when committing such a sizable amount to a project? Mr. Sweeney.
Well, as far as the sportsplex goes, along with any aspect of the community and transparency, I'll tell you a quick story. I was out in Green Valley about a month ago knocking on doors, and I come to this elderly lady's home, and she asked me to come in and visit with her. So we went in and sat down in her living room, and we probably spoke for 30 minutes, everything about our grandchildren, or her grandchildren, my children. And I got up to leave, and she stopped and she said, I want you to know I've lived here since 1957, and not one...
Exit down this way. Okay, thank you.
Test.
All clear. Attention, it's all clear.
Test. Test. Hello there. I didn't mind the fire alarm as much as that last two-tone thing that happened. Awful noise. I was ready to confess the things I did back in the 80s. All right, let's regroup. Everybody settle back down. It was a false alarm. We've got power back, and we can continue. Now, exactly in fairness, you were just finishing asking a rather lengthy question, Janet. Is that right? Had you finished asking it? You had. Gentlemen, do you both remember? You had just started to answer. Mr. Smith, do you remember the gist of her question? Summarize the question again in fairness to everyone, and then Mr. Sweeney, you'll start again from the beginning of your 1 minute. Go ahead, Janet.
So the question was about transparency. It was a two-part question. What specific policies will you adopt to provide more transparency about the sports complex project, and also ensure that a lack of transparency is prevented in the future when committing such a sizable amount to a project? Mr. Sweeney, I think you had begun to answer.
Yeah, and like I was saying, I had met with this lady in Green Valley, an elderly lady. She invited me in, and we were talking about different things with the city, and I was there probably 30 minutes. And I get up to walk out, and she stops me and she says, "I've lived in this home since 1957, almost 60 years." She said, "This is the first time that anyone running for public office has ever taken the time to come in my living room and talk to me about my concerns with the city." And for people that know me, it was probably shocked. I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. But we have to include our people. We have to reach out and talk to everyone. And another thing I mentioned at the last forum, you guys can see up here, there's 18 men up here. We've got to get women involved in the process as well. And as far as the sportsplex goes, I think I wasn't a fan of the way it was passed. Am I a supporter of it? Absolutely, we've got to be. But I feel like more community input should have been put into it before you spent $80 million.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Smith, just before you answer, if you smell something burning or smell it or odor, I'm told the chillers, the thing that provides our air-conditioned air, have to reset, and that puts off a scent like that. But if you see me burst into flames, then run for your lives. Now, Mr. Smith, the same question. You have 1 minute to answer.
First, I'd like to say when the alarm went off, I thought Sam won the daily doubles. As far as the sportsplex, conversation had been going on for some period of time. I know that there were some members of the community, obviously, we didn't do the best job that we could have done. Unfortunately, one of the things that happened is it came to the council with a sense of emergency, that we needed to be able to do this in order to salvage the SEC tournament. As far as in the future, I think that we probably could make better use of the city's website and put more things on the city's website to give people an opportunity to research and develop questions.
Gentlemen, thank you. Matthew Allen will continue our question, and his question will be to Mr. Smith.
This comes from Linda Chastain in Bluff Park. She says, "It appears the candidates are divided between school funding first and the Chamber of Commerce / sports complex supporters. What is your primary concern?"
Well, our concern has to do with both. We can't leave either out. A perceived problem is a real problem. In this case, we have two different issues. We have the issue of bringing something that's going to bring $30 to $33 million a year into the local economy. It's going to provide youth sports activities for fields for kids that have yet to come play. When it comes to school issues, I've already stated that we've got to find some long-term solutions. There are some short-term remedies that we can take care of, but there's no way going to take care of any long-term issues. And once again, I want to reiterate that the three parties that need to be involved with all of it, especially the school funding needs to be the council, the mayor, the Board of Education, the superintendent and her staff, and you, the citizens.
Another question from Matthew. This is for Mr. Sweeney.
This is an anonymous question. Seldom does any leader have enough money to satisfy all funding requests. Please indicate how you determine what budget items to fund in priority and your thought process for working through those requirements.
Well, if you take a look at the capital funds project budget, for instance, there's approximately $20 million in this fund. A lot of the projects in there, some of them, the road construction projects, we can't pull out of them because federal funds match those projects. There are projects, however, such as in 2016, there was a project for $750,000 to replace the liner in the Birch Tree Swim and Ranch Club. Are anybody here a member of the Birch Tree? Has the liner been replaced? Okay. In 2015, the same thing, $400,000 to replace the liner in Birch Tree. There's projects in the budget, and I've got a list of them, I don't have them with me, but there's projects in there that we have no intention of ever following through on. So those funds, I think we should move over to education.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. We now move to our next questions from John Anderson. Mr. Sweeney, you're still up for this question.
This is a question from Hal Farrell. Mr. Sweeney, would you support a performing arts center in Hoover similar to the one in Oxford, Alabama, which I found out seats 1,130 people? If so, how would they be funded in terms of construction and staffing?
I would need to look at the plan, but absolutely, it sounds like a great idea. We focus a lot here on sports, and sports are very important in Hoover, but so is performing arts. And right now, we don't have a performing arts center to fill the needs of our citizens. So yes, absolutely, I'd be in support of it.
Another question for Gene Smith.
This is an anonymous question, Mr. Smith, and it's rather long. But in a profile published in the Hoover Sun on August 5th, discussing various funding needs and your priorities, you stated, quote, "But we can't let city services suffer because of somebody else's needs," end quote, indicating that while you would like to find additional funding for city schools, you felt it only possible after first addressing the so-called city's needs. How do you not see the schools as one of the city's needs deserving of priority funding, especially in comparison to debt service on a new sports complex?
Well, first, as elected officials for the city council, we are elected to represent the city. Thus, we have to make sure that the city is taken care of. Now, education as well. Education receives funding from a lot of different sources. The library receives it simply from the general fund of the city. So does the fire department, except for maybe an occasional grant. The school system receives funds both federally, from the state. Ad valorem taxes are considered local funds, and then any monies that are appropriated by the city. I've already said twice, this will be the third time, that we need to do a better job on that last one. We need to find a way, and all of you need to be a significant part of that.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Sweeney, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, would you give them a round of applause, please? And we'll do some I'd like to ask the candidates for place 3 on the Hoover City Council to come forward, Mr. John Lyda and Arnold Singer. Good evening, gentlemen. We'll begin with a 2-minute opening comment from each of you. Let's begin with Mr. Lyda. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mike. I want to thank the sponsors and the host and for each of you for being here tonight. What a great night to celebrate Hoover, and look forward to democracy in action next Tuesday. I trust that by your presence here, you will each be at the polls between the 7th and 7th next week. Make your voice heard and to cast your vote. I am John Lyda. I am a candidate for place 3. I'm married to Beth Kirkland, who is here in the auditorium somewhere. We have 2 children age 14, a daughter, Anna Kate, who is in 9th grade. And we have a son, age 11, who's a 6th grader at Simmons Middle. Beth and I will actually celebrate our 19th wedding anniversary on Tuesday, Election Day, and I can't tell you how excited she is, Mike. But as a quick introduction, I came to you 4 years ago, and many of you didn't know me. Perhaps you knew me as a genuine nice guy. Perhaps we went to church together at Hunter Street, or you knew me from my employer at Blue Cross, but you didn't know what kind of public servant I would make. And I ask you to put your trust in me as someone who would be the most visible, the most communicative representative you'd ever seen in this city. And it's my hope and my goal that I've kept that commitment to you. I hope I've had the opportunity to get to know you and serve you in some capacity. Based on the amount of emails I've got over the last 4 years, I swear at least most of you have emailed me several times throughout that 4 years, and I'm happy to do that. I told the forum last week that I hope I'm the guy you think about when you say, I need something from the city council. I hope John Light is the guy that you call on. I want that kind of confidence in you. I hope I've earned that over the last 4 years, and I hope I've earned your vote for another 4. And certainly we'll talk as we get out throughout the questions about my priorities and my service. But it's clear what I am. I'm a very pro-business conservative. That's the best way I can sum up what I'm about. And as we answer these questions over the next few minutes, I hope I earn your trust and your vote for another 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Lyden. Now, Arnold Singer, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Arnold Singer, place 3. Government should be transparent, not opaque. You, the public, the funders of government, should be informed and informed regularly. I believe in term limits. I will serve only 1 term and then retire to the active sidelines. 90% of the actions before the council are routine and non-controversial. I will propose at the first meeting of the new council a much-needed procedure. If 2 council members state that they consider an action item to be non-routine, then action on that item will be delayed for 2 regular scheduled council public meetings to give you, the public, a chance to be heard. You can voice your opinions, pro and con. No more $70 million projects presented and approved in 1 meeting. I will also request that the CFO prepare and provide quarterly financial statements. These statements will include a breakout of the sources of the sales and use taxes. I will also recommend that council appointments to various boards be limited to 2 terms, thereby allowing more citizen participation. These are in addition to live streaming and archiving of council work sessions and public meetings. Thank you.
Gentlemen, you each had 2 minutes. Now we will shift to 1 minute to answer our questions. Let's begin with this, which might be the simplest question you can ask a person running for office. We'll begin with you, Mr. Lyden. What makes you the best candidate for this job?
It's a fair question. I grew up in a small, very rural town, Sam Mountain. My parents are here, and I've learned from them the dedication it takes to be a public servant. My dad served right under 40 years in the Alabama National Guard, and he's in elected office today. And so I have the pedigree it takes to understand, Mike, exactly how important public service is, and the integrity and honesty it takes to carry out that job. My business background, I'm an employee of Hoover's largest employer. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama employs 3,100 people here in the city. And so I have a background where I've managed multi-million-dollar businesses. I've managed staffs of up to 100 people. So I understand how to run a business, and I know how to balance a budget. And I know how to motivate folks and communicate. So those are all the very key ingredients to what it takes to be a public servant.
Thank you, Mr. Lyden. Mr. Singer, 1 minute to tell us why you're the best candidate for this job.
Well, to start with, I'm 79 years old, and I've been a fan and locally involved in local government, first in New Jersey and now here in Hoover, Alabama. So that's since 1980, and that's more than a few years. I have run for public office before, and I keep trying, okay? It's because I care, and it's a shame that more of you don't come out to meetings. In order for things to be representative, government should be more transparent, which is a point that I raised in my earlier remarks. So it's a dedication to public service, separate and apart from my involvement with a number of nonprofit organizations.
Thank you both. Now we'll switch back over to our panel. Matthew Allen will begin our question, and this first question is still for you, Mr. Singer.
This question comes from Crystal Johnson, who lives on Rustic Trail Road. Actually, the same question will be asked of both candidates. As a candidate, how do you plan on helping small and independent businesses grow? What opportunities do you see in the future if elected that will help those businesses as well?
Mr. Singer, you're first to answer.
Yes, I realize. Okay, takes me a second to...
Me too. Me too.
Did the time start yet?
The time is going to start now.
Small business is a matter of the entrepreneurship drive that an individual has. And this typically comes about through their training that they get with their family, training that they get in school, training they get in college or trade school, wherever it is, okay? They're applying the training, the learning, that to me is the key to excellence in government. To me, Hoover is an excellent source of entrepreneurship. I think as we move along, there will be even more opportunities as we come up with a master plan that encourages more local businesses.
Mr. Lyda, the same question for you, sir.
You know, I work for, as I said, the largest corporation in the city of Hoover, but make no mistake, I believe a small business is the lifeblood of the community. And it's no different in Hoover, Alabama. David, you own a small business in Hoover, and there's so many small business owners in here. The way I help do that is promote small business through our Hoover Chamber of Commerce. We have one of the largest and most active chambers in the state of Alabama, and Bill Powell and his staff do a fantastic job of helping promote those small businesses in our community. So how do we do that as a council? 4 or 5 times a week, I'm in some chamber of it. Today I was at one where we were opening the grand opening of the new St. Vincent's Med Center in Chase Lake. And that may seem like a small thing, but when I'm there, I'm going to share on Twitter and on Facebook and my channels to communicate with you what's going on in the city, those businesses that are opening up, and that's my way of promoting those and making our residents aware of what's new in the community so that you can patronize those businesses that, as I said earlier, are really the lifeblood of our community.
Mr. Lyda, you'll also continue to answer this question as we move to John Anderson for our next question. John?
Mr. Lyda, in the last 4 years, you have supported zoning changes that authorized 2,000 new houses to be built in Hoover, including 500 in Lake Wilburn, 1,150 in Black Ridge, 163 in Turkey Preserve, 97 in Brock Point, and 83 in McGill Crossings. How do you justify approving so many new homes when many residents say schools and roads are having a hard time keeping up with the growth as it is?
It's a good question. John and I have had a lot of conversations on this very topic. John, I think we've done a rather inadequate job as a council of talking and defining what growth is. And I've told you, I think you've done an inadequate job as a journalist of explaining to the community about what true growth is. The growth that we've seen is annexation that happened in the 80s and 90s. And this is annexation of land that's already in the city of Hoover. And landowners are just like you and I, people that own land in the city, that own a home on it, and they believe they have the right, and the courts have said they have the right to build on it and develop it within the confines of the law. Now, sometimes the story that doesn't get told in the Hoover sign is that the number of houses we've reduced that were initially approved in the annexation agreement. So really the story is, John, and the question would probably be more appropriate, how many thousands of homes we've been able to work to reduce the overall density, and it could have been much, much worse. And what we've done over the last 4 years, it is considerably less density in terms of...
All right, John, another question. This is for Mr. Singer.
Okay, Mr. Singer, this is a question from Hal Farrell. Would you support a performing arts center in Hoover, similar to the one in Oxford, Alabama, which seats 1,130 people? If so, how would it be funded for construction and staffing?
Again, this is a subject for discussion in a master plan or comprehensive plan. I am very much in support of the arts, but to me, at this point in time, it is a want as opposed to a need. So the priority for a Performing Arts Center would be lower, but yet would be something that would be on the horizon.
Gentlemen, you'll both be back in a little while with some closing comments. Thank you all very much.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Janet, one of my pages went completely out the window. I skipped down. Turner, she has two questions for Mr. Singer first. I apologize.
All right, same questions both. This question is from Jeff Paget, and I'm actually going to add on to it a little bit. But his question is, would you support a move to fixed council districts to ensure all areas of the city are equally represented on the council? And I've had a question about the same area, but a different proposal, which would be, would you support just voting for 7 people instead of 7 places? So could you address both of those in your answer? Mr. Singer, we start with you.
That is very much like the question, should we have an elected board or should we have an appointed board? There are pluses and minuses for each side. Do we have wards, or do we have everybody at large and pick your place? If we're looking at popularity contests, then certainly the top 7 finishers would people the council. Personally, I would love to be able to see a situation where you have the mayor and 3 council people run at one point, and then 2 years later, 4 council people run, so that there would be a change in movement in government that would be more flexible and give people 2 years to say, gee, we made a mistake. It's time to correct it.
Thank you, Mr. Singer. Janet, one more question for Mr. Wayne.
Same question, please.
Yeah, I would not be in favor of districts, and here's why, Janet. The 4 years I've served up there, I've never heard once one of my colleagues say, John, I don't want to do that because it's not good for Greystone. John, I don't want to do that because it's really not what we need. John brings it into districts naturally make you territorial. And the voters have the ability to elect who they want. If geography is important to them come next Tuesday, they can cast their votes geographically on who they think they should serve. So the territorialism is one thing that I would really be very concerned about.
Now?
Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you. We'll have you back in a little while with some final comments. Thank you very much. Now the candidates from place 4 for City Council, please come forward. Sergeant Major Michael Holt and Mike Shaw. Gentlemen, welcome. We will begin with Sergeant Major Holt. You have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight, and thank you for you guys coming as well. This is your time to ask us questions and for us to get involved with you. I'm Sergeant Major Holt. I was born and raised here in Birmingham. I only left when I went into service, and upon returning from that service 16 plus years ago, I live here in Hoover. My intentions tonight are to let you know my platforms and to hopefully explain how I would approach and solve each one of those. My beliefs are simple: God, country, family, and community. And without the first 3, you can't be honorable and serve the last one. I served our country for 22 years. I've achieved the highest rank as a sergeant major. I've worked in the intelligence community with the special operations guys. I was awarded the Legion of Merit, swore down from the Congressional Medal of Honor. I was in Desert Storm, I was in Bosnia, and I was in Desert Shield. I'm not saying all that brag on myself. It's to tell you that I know how to make hard, tough decisions, even when it sometimes affected my men. Today, I'm an electrical engineer. I work for a company. We design, we sell, and we install large industrial projects. Like I said, my family and I live here in Russet Woods. My 3 kids have gone through the Hoover school system. One's in college now, the other 2 are at high school. I've been involved with the Boy Scouts for the last 14 years. I've been the committee chairman for 4 of those years. I teach a couple nights a week at ITT here locally, trying to pay it forward to those that helped me along in my career. So my platforms and priorities as your representative is to make the hard decisions, tough and educated decisions on the following items. I want a strategic master plan with smart city growth that's adopted and is utilized. That plan will also cover a fully funded educational system. It will support the public safety, and the well-being of our community, and making this sports complex profitable as
Sorry,
well as
sir.
revenue generating.
Your time right now, I'm sorry. You'll have other opportunities to say whatever you like. Thank you, sir. Mike Shaw, you have 2 minutes for an opening comment. Yes, sir.
Well, hello, my name is Mike Shaw, candidate for Place 4. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for the organizers for doing this. This is a really great chance to talk with us. I've lived in Hoover for 15 years with my wife, Shelley, and we have 2 children, both in the Hoover City school system. My daughter is a senior at Spain Park, and my son is a 6th grader at Berry Middle School. I chose to run for city council because this is a great city. How many people here have lived here for more than 20 years? Okay, first of all, thank you very much for what you've done. You have built an amazing city, a city that we can, that my family has been able to thrive in, that we've been able to grow in and really carry out the plans that God has for us. So thank you very much. And I think we're at a crossroads in this election, which is cliche to say because we're always at a crossroads at every election. But I think we have a lot of great things happening in Hoover. And but you can kind of see some things that if we don't take care of them, we can have some trouble coming up if we're not careful. So I want to be part of that solution. I want to be part of the team that takes us to the next level and takes us to that next phase. Day to day, I work for a credit union. It's a credit union that has 30,000 members. I'm responsible for the technology of the day-to-day technology. I serve as chief technology officer, both the day-to-day and the long-term planning to make sure we both don't have any problems, but solve the problems that we do occasionally run into. And that's kind of the skill set I bring. It's teamwork and positivity and problem solving. And I think those are exactly what we're going to need for the next phase of Hoover's success. And I'd love to be a part of that success. So Mike Shaw, Place 4. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw, thank you. Let's ask both of you the same question I asked the gentleman who preceded you. And I'll begin with you, Sergeant Major Hull. What makes you the best candidate for Place 4 on the council?
Well, it's the years of decision making that I've been doing. My commitment to service, which started at 20 years of age to this country. I've committed my time with the Boy Scouts here locally, service down in the community. I've worked with young men and developing their lives, making them Eagle Scouts. I've worked with people that are in the education system through the engineering firms and things of that nature. I've been about service my whole life. One of the key issues I have is I don't want to take a pay. If I'm elected and I'm going to take my salary each month and I'm going to donate it to a charity here in Hoover, I believe they set this country up on service, and that's the way it should be now. So I'm here to serve this community.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shaw, why are you the best candidate for this job?
Well, there are many types of experiences and many ways you can learn to do the kind of things that the council is required to do. And I would commend my opponent for his service, and I have nothing but respect for that. Many of my family have served, and I'm very, very proud of that. And again, I thank you for what you've done. If we were invading Homewood, I would say, this is the man for the job right here. But it's, there are lots of different ways to learn some of these lessons. And in technology and the work we do, like I said, we solve problems, we work on a team, we do lots of different things the same kind of things that we do in the council. So that's what I would say. My life experience has been about solving problems and working on a team, and that's what we're going to do. So.
Thank you both. Mr. Shaw, you'll answer our first question from our panel. John Anderson will begin with our first question.
Mr. Shaw, you've talked about the need to reevaluate funding for Hoover City Schools. What specifically do you recommend be done about funding for Hoover City Schools? How much money is needed per year, and from where should that money come? Is it new taxes, redirecting existing revenue from other city projects or departments? And if the latter, which ones?
Okay, great question. All right, the school system is obviously separate from the city. They're two separate entities. But I see really 3 phases to this. The first is there is an immediate need to assist them to stop the bleeding that's going on in the school system. We may have to scrape together some money, pull it from here and there to do a short-term fix. That is not a long-term solution. That might last us 1 or 2 years at the most. We have a midterm issue we have to help them with, and that's with these tax renewals. These are renewed taxes that they absolutely have to have. If you look at Homewood, Mountain Brook went through the same thing. They voted 97% to approve their tax renewals. Vestavia did the same thing, 91%. Hoover needs to come out and support their schools by renewing these taxes. It's very important. That's the second phase. Then there's the long-term thing that we've heard about. I don't know what that looks like. That's part of that teamwork. This is what we have to tackle as a community and as a team. How we're going to have this long-term school funding solution. There's no quick fixes and there's no rash decisions. Those are the three things we have to tackle.
Mr. Shaw, thank you. Sergeant Major Holt, a question for you, still from John.
Sergeant Major Holt, you originally announced you were running for Hoover Council Place 1 and later switched to Council Place 4. Did any of the candidates for Council Place 1 encourage you to make that switch? And if so, who? Did your son getting hired to work for Dr. Lott's campaign have anything to do with that switch?
All good questions. You're going to love these answers. First off, nobody had any input on that decision of whether to actually do it or not but me. I was asked when I first got in, many times on Hoover Vote as well as private messaging, we don't want you guys running together. We want y'all to separate. We want you to go do, to give us options and make sure that everybody was covered long before everybody else got into this. I tried to make this an Army-Navy thing with Apple Natter, and when he decided not to run, he reminded me real quick like that he had been Army for the last 17 years. As far as my son goes, he is working for Dr. Lott. I would not pay him to cut my grass or to put signs up. So I think Dr. Lott decided to do something with him, and that's how that came to be. So, still not going to pay him.
All right, gentlemen, you move the microphone over for Janet Turner. She will have a question still for you, Sergeant Major Holt.
This question is from Sarah Simmons, and it's the same question for both of you. Please share your plan for future community planning and how you will work together with the school board, developers, and business leaders.
Like I said in my opening remarks, the strategic plan, the master plan, the comprehensive plan, all three of those are out there. We've got to work all of these things like public safety, education, they come under that. As far as the transparency goes, I believe we should do the exact same thing the board of education is doing, and that's the videotape them so everybody can see them. A lot of the elderly people that I've met and talked with, they want to be able to be part of this and be in there. As far as the working with them, I mean, that's just what we should already be doing as a city council. We should be engaged, being at the meetings with the Board of Education. They should be engaged in being in our meetings. We should work together in that way. The funding, I mean, like we've talked about, there's media funding, then there's the bonding, there's the taxes coming up, the long term. None of that's going to get done unless we open up and we have strong conversations with each other and we figure out how we're going to do the things we need to do to make the city better.
Janet has another question for Mr. Shaw.
Same question. Yes. Please share your plan for future community planning and how you will work together with the school board, developers, and business leaders.
Okay. A comprehensive plan really has three phases. The first thing you do is you get together as a community and you decide what is our sacred ground, what's important to us. The things we hear about with the sports complex or the fine arts center and the school system, we need to determine. Everybody thinks we know what's important to Hoover, but I think we need to quantify that. That's the first step of a comprehensive plan. The next step is that you start making plans, like technical plans about what you're going to do. You have traffic studies, you have land use studies, and you have projections and things like that. That's where you start working together with the school system because that helps you project revenue, it helps you project population growth, all the things that are important to these decisions that involve collaboration with the school system. That's kind of where a plan goes and how that works together.
Mr. Shaw, you remain up for the next question. This one coming from Matthew Allen.
Before I ask this question, I want to remind you that anytime a candidate specifically refers to their opponent, the opponent will have 30 seconds to rebut. However, this particular question, which was submitted to us anonymously, does ask you to address the other candidates. So I think we'll probably waive that this question. The question is, what differences are there between you and your competitor, and why should you have my vote instead of the other? To start with Mr. Shaw.
Okay. He's a good man, obviously a good man. And that's one of the things about local elections is that hopefully we're all friends. And it's kind of an interesting thing to have. It's not like national elections where they're a mess. It's not like the state government, which is also a mess. These are our friends and neighbors that we run against. I'm not going to say anything negative about my opponent, never will. The joke I made earlier was this, because it was getting kind of heavy in here, I wanted to lighten it up. Like I said, I would just point to my experience and what I've done before and my job and what I do day to day, lots of responsibility, working on a team, all the same things that will be important as a council member.
Same question, Sergeant Major Cole.
Same one?
Yes, sir.
I think it was stated earlier when we started this, all of us up here are here to make the city better. We're all here trying to do what we believe is right, to support and to work for the community. Again, we've had this conversation multiple times. We're not going to get in the weeds. We're not going to get ugly with each other. Respect him wholeheartedly. And so my strengths again, I'm an engineer. My world's very black and white. I make decisions every single day. I'm a problem solver. And my history and service has been said already, so that's where I'll leave it.
Very good. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you back for a little while. Folks, you're able to go in and out whenever you please. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break. We'd ask you to stay around. Candidates, you've got 5 minutes to take a break, and then we'll continue. Thank you. For place 5 on the Hoover City Council. We'd like to be respectful of your time and the time of our candidates, so please, if you would, go ahead and find your seat so we can continue. As you settle back into your seats, I'll share one quick thing with you. How many of you remember my good friend Joe Langston? Joe anchored the news here in Birmingham forever. I did the weather for 10 years, and when Channel 13 offered me a job anchoring the news, I asked Joe if he had any advice for me. And he said, well, Mike, the only advice I would give you is this. The key to being a good news anchor is sincerity. And once you learn to fake that, it's really not hard. So that worked pretty good for a while. Well, let's get started and continue on with the second part of our program. We do want to get everybody home in time for the 10 o'clock news. Next is place 5 for the City Council in Hoover. Our candidates, Mr. Dan Ellis and Mr. Derek Murphy. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here. Let's begin with a 2-minute opening comment, and we'll begin with Dan Ellis. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to take a moment just to tell you about me versus the platform to start with, because I think it's important to know who I am. So I first visited Hoover in 1995 to visit my soon-to-be wife at the time, whose family had just moved into River Chase. I fell in love with the city at first sight. Now, I know it's a popular answer tonight that the #1 reason people move to Hoover is the schools. But to be honest with you, that wasn't my case. Now, that became a popular thing with me, but at the time, it was the rolling hills, the beautiful wooded neighborhoods, the small town appeal, and the quality of life present. I knew immediately that this is where we wanted to live and to start our family. Having lived in Boston and Atlanta, I understand explosive growth in concrete cities. Hoover was and is so vibrant and alive. Even though Hoover is relatively small, it has so much to offer and is so close to the area attractions and interstates. My beautiful wife Colleen and I have 2 children. Maddie's at Hoover High and is on the student board for the Hoover School Foundation, serving you folks tonight. Carter, my son, attends Bumpus Middle School, and Colleen, my wife, is a nurse by trade, and she serves as a substitute teacher and a school nurse for the Hoover City Schools. I'm committed to make Hoover even greater than it already is today, because it is great. I'm devoted to ensure Hoover remains as the #1 most desirable place to live in the U.S., not just Alabama. Presently, Hoover's fire and police departments are the best in class in the nation. I would put them against anyone. I think the same should be true of our schools as well. I'm in support of our schools, and I'm confident they too will be best in class here at Hoover. Through sustainable growth and controlled economic development, we will ensure our path into the future and viable revenue streams to fund and serve our community, our interests, and our schools. I humbly ask for your consideration and your vote next Tuesday.
Mr. Ellis, thank you. Mr. Derek Murphy is our other candidate for place 5. Mr. Murphy, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Derek Murphy. And firstly, let me thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to serve this great city in multiple roles. I've served on the Board of Zoning Adjustment where I protect neighbors' property borders. I've served on the school board for 5 years, where I've advocated both locally and state for education. And I also had the pleasure to serve and create the Hoover City Dad Brigade, where in July we brought out over 500 people. Now, before I move forward, I always have to talk about the way I was raised, because I believe if you know how a person was raised, you can pretty much dictate the way they will go. I was raised by my grandparents. Our grandparents taught me fundamental values such as love God, always be a fiscally responsible person, and never ask for handouts and work hard for all you have done. My grandmother loved my brother and I so much that she used her Social Security retirement to put us in private school when our public educational system was riddled with violence and crime. And that's the reason my wife and I moved to Hoover. And that's the reason why many of you moved to Hoover. Now, I never learned to skate, so I'm not a skater. And we are not going to skate around the topic. At the end of the day, if our school system does not make it to be the top school system in Hoover, who will stay here? The question is, if crime continues to increase, who will stay in the city of Hoover? The bottom line is that I will not present a problem if I don't present a solution for it, because a problem without solution is a complainer. Thank you.
Gentlemen, let's, before we go to the panel, let's ask you each to answer this question. What do you believe is the biggest problem facing the city of Hoover? And if elected, how would you address that problem? Mr. Murphy, why don't you begin? And remember now, we go from 2 minutes, 1 minute to answer questions. Your time cues come from the front table. You go right ahead.
Well, there's no question that education is key, but the main concern we have is the revenue issue. It is no way possible a city can grow from 60,000 people to 86,000 folks and talk about reducing expenses. There's no way possible a school district can grow from 5,000 students to 14,000 and talk about decreasing expenses. The goal is that we have to increase revenue here in one form of way. As I stand in the Galleria, and as the Galleria is the local place that we produce our revenue, but Sears, JCPenney's, and Macy's continue to talk about closing down. And if we lose one of those 800 stores, if anybody knows how Central Plaza occurred, we can have the same problem. What I'd like to do is to pull a fine arts center similar to Allen Stevens Center to our city. Those things help and aid and bring in additional revenue, so we're not robbing Paul to pay Peter, and we help and support our schools and everything else in the city of Hoover.
Mr. Ellis, same question. Biggest problem, how would you address it?
Yes, the way I view this is that the number one challenge for the city, as honestly would be for any city, is going to be the revenue funding. We are completely contingent upon ad valorem tax, property tax, sales tax, some occupational tax, lodging tax, etc. We are completely funded by those tax dollars. So how do we continue to sustain the growth? Well, it's through controlled, sustainable growth, economic development. My activities over the last 14 years through the Hoover Chamber of Commerce and through this city and itself through events and support of the city events is ensuring that businesses do survive. A question was asked earlier tonight about economic development for small business. That is what makes Hoover so great. It's not necessarily the big boxes. The big boxes do bring people, but it's sporting events. Hoover is a destination. So how do we continue to stay that destination and thrive in the future for the next 10, 20, 30 years forward? That is what I consider to be the most important challenge.
We'll go to our panel now for questions. Janet Murphy will begin, and her question will be for Derek Murphy. Janet?
My question is from Shanette Daigle on Ridge Ranch Circle. Despite its great potential, commercial and residential property along Warner Road is perceived negatively. What are your plans to revitalize this area, thereby strengthening the heart of Hoover?
In many cases, I'm an engineer. In many cases, when you're talking about revitalization, you're talking about a lot of private and public collaboration, similar that occurred with the Railroad Park, private public, similar that occurred with Red Mountain Trails, private public. So long-term, a strategic plan has to be the map of our entire city, connectivity, things of that nature. But that starts with having a lot of community dialogue moving forward. When I served on the school board and we went through a hard challenge of talking about rezoning, we had to do 11 community meetings at different locations. giving people an opportunity to talk about it. We have a long road ahead if we do not begin to properly plan now. This is a great city, but a great city has to continue to do the necessary things to be great if we want to survive.
Another question from Janet, this time for Dan Ellis.
This question is from Dennis Quirk in Ross Bridge. Please indicate top 2 specific leadership traits you believe you bring to this position and give examples of how you have embodied them in previous positions.
Well, first and foremost, my education. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, marketing, sales, and sales management. I've been doing that since, quite honestly, 13 years old. The first company that would hire me, Baskin Robbins. So I know what it takes to work. I don't accept handouts. I believe that if you want something, that you get involved, you get educated, and you take action. So for 20 years, I've been in the business industry, business world, whether it be running my own company or managing others. Right now, with my position, I manage the compliance of companies throughout the state of Alabama and all over the region. So I am placed with a great sense of responsibility. One, to keep employers compliant. I understand that. Two, through my active involvement. I mean, the one reason I'm a walking commercial for Hoover ever since I moved here in 1996. Through my involvement through the chamber, everywhere I go, I'm actually quiet now. I don't try not to tell people how great Hoover is outside the city because people want to come here. So you have to be careful what you say. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis, we'll ask you to stay at the microphone as we switch to Matthew Allen for our next question for you.
This question comes from Stacy Jenkins, and she asks, has there been a permanent resolution in regards to the property owned by U.S. Steel? I believe she is referring to the property along I-459. If not, how would you vote when presented with another debate about apartments on this land?
Well, I'm a resident of Trace Crossings, and I actually thought you were referring to the meeting we had Sunday that created a litany of comments regarding rezoning. I think first and foremost, we're placed with a challenge here. This land is owned and operated by U.S. Steel. They have rights and extensions of those rights are given to them. But I think collectively it takes a community. Being a resident of Trace Crossings, property owned by U.S. Steel, we are faced with some of these same rezoning possibilities right now, and collectively as a community, not only is it a collaboration of not just the impacted communities within the PUD, but in the surrounding areas that are affected. I think it takes community input, city leadership, planning and zoning. It's going to take a community effort to address all of these areas.
Another question from you, Matthew. This is for Mr. Murphy.
This was submitted anonymously. The question is, what is the probability of building a performing arts center in the city?
That's a great question. Again, I mentioned it earlier. Generally, government handles a couple of components. Schools, public safety, having a vision, and also our roads. We rely heavily on private business to help us along the way. If a school, if a city goes into the extent of funding every capital project, they will find themselves in major debt. So that's why you rely on those private-public ventures to take place. Again, similar to what happened in Birmingham and the revitalization of Avondale and also Lakeview. We must look to have a lot of private and public partnerships in order to make a lot of things happen, but to start with a strategic plan to talk about the future of Hoover.
Question now from John Anderson. This question goes to you, Derek Murphy.
This will be actually the same question for both of you. It's from Monica Dobbins. Apartment dwellers in Hoover want to know what measures you will take to make sure that new housing development includes not just luxury homes, but affordable middle-income homes as well.
Your PUD determines a lot that goes along those lines as far as affordability. We have a lot of apartment communities in our region, but I think initially what we need to do is establish a partnership with them, because many apartment communities believe that they are isolated away from everyone else. They are separate from the home community. They're not a part of Hoover. They don't dedicate anything to our city. So initially we got to begin to build that partnership along that way. We started talking about planning for the city again. We have to come together as a city and see the things that what we really want for the city. And that start with master planning, and that start with a lot of communication. Until we begin to have that, we're like a cat turning around chasing our tail.
Mr. Ellis, same question. Do you need to repeat it or are you fine?
Apartment dwellers in Hoover want to know what measures you will take to make sure that new housing development includes not just luxury homes, but affordable middle-income homes as well.
Great question. And I would take this a little bit further and say not just apartment dwellers, but even define that as across a multi-generational fix, because it's not just apartment dwellers, but also we know that we have an aging community. I'd love to see more senior homes on single level plats, based on the growing population that's hitting those mature years. I think it is important that Hoover has an attraction as a city as a whole, and one of the common words I hear among that is diversity. So it is not necessarily that we need to be the Chateau of Hoover, to be this regal and Ritz community, but it has attracted higher levels of income, but it's important to include all levels. And so yes, I think part of it starts with communication and collaboration, one with area developers. Like I said, we've got a fight in Trace Crossings right now with proposed rezoning issues that may be coming up. It's going to take a collaborative effort, hearing the voice of the people, and ultimately, as the next city council member, if you elect me, that's what I choose to be, is your voice.
Dan Ellis, Derek Murphy, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. We'll ask our candidates for place 6 on the Hoover Council to come forward. Jason DeLuca and Casey Middlebrooks. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you. Once you're situated and in place, let's begin by asking you each to make a 2-minute opening statement. Again, a reminder, the yellow card will give you an indication of 10 seconds left, and then you'll be told your time is up. Let's begin with Jason DeLuca. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Well, thank you. My name is Jason DeLuca, and I'm a candidate for place 6 on the Hoover City Council. I want to first start off by thanking our event organizers, our hosts, and you all for coming out tonight and allowing us this opportunity to speak with you all on the issues that you all are facing in Hoover. We have some big ones ahead, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. A little bit about myself. I live not too far down the road in Green Valley with my wife, April. Professionally, my background is I'm a hotelier by trade. I'm currently the general manager of the Homewood Suites Hilton in Inverness off of Highway 280. Yes, the other side of Hoover. And I can tell you, as a hotel guy, I've had my fair share of false fire alarms, so I certainly felt for Paul and the team when we had our scare today. But one of the things that we've been talking about tonight before we came up here and over the course of the campaign are some very serious issues and challenges the city has ahead over the next 4 years. When we discuss increasing or taking on the challenges of Hoover City Schools and the financials stability that they need, it's going to take a lot of time, consideration, and effort. Same goes when we talk about planning and growth. We want to discuss on how Hoover is growing, and it's going to take a lot of your input and a lot of hard work to do that. I think when you study the candidates tonight and over the course of this election before next Tuesday, I hope you'll see my background and involvement in projects, leading teams, and dealing with large financial matters, including managing a budget over $3 million+. I thank you all. I hope you're under consideration for place 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Mr. Middlebrooks, 2 minutes, sir.
I'd like to extend my appreciation to Hoover City Schools Foundation, Hoover Rotary, and Hoover Sun for giving our community a chance to be better informed voters and citizens. I'm Casey Middlebrooks, the most experienced candidate for place 6. I am a husband, a father, and the son of a career firefighter. I have served this community for 20 years, both as a city employee and now as an educator. While I am not an eloquent speaker that will say all the right things, I am a doer and a problem solver. I'm the only Hoover Public Library employee to ever be awarded the City of Hoover Employee of the Year, which I did in 1999. 1 year after I joined Hoover City Schools, I was able to institute a big read program in Spain Park and personally persuaded Dr. Condoleezza Rice to visit our school free of charge. In the past few months, I've been able to work with citizens and city engineers to identify areas of improvement and start on implementing a solution. If you have a concern or suggestion, I want to be the person you can go to, because I will find a solution for you. The number one concern I keep hearing about is school funding, and I'm out to cut services. Let me remind you, I grew up in a fire station. I was a city employee for 11 years. I know, appreciate, and will support our many wonderful city services and first responders. The schools are not asking for a blank check. Dr. Murphy has been very transparent and forthcoming on the school's needs. We have got to stop punishing our children for the mistakes perpetrated by some adults in the past. I have a PhD in educational administration. I have working knowledge of our schools and our city services, and I have a long-term investment in our community. Please vote for Middlebrooks for place 6.
Thank you, Mr. Middlebrooks. Thank you both, gentlemen. I'll remind you now to shift your thinking from 2 minutes to 1. You'll have 60 seconds to answer the questions that follow now, and you'll get your same time cues from the table in front. Same question for both of you. Jason DeLuca, would you begin? If elected, what would be your top priority in this job?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it comes down to planning and working together and collaborating with those, not only just on the council, but the stakeholders in the community. The challenges that we addressed before in terms of school systems or how we grow all ties in together. And I think that we have an opportunity to get more people to the table. And I want to make sure that over the next 4 years that everybody, whether you own property or you're a resident or you're an educator, that you've had a seat at the table and been part of the process. Because we need to discuss how we're moving the city forward, not only financially, but how we grow. And then having a good mix in terms of revenue to address some of these challenges. So I hope that in over the 4 years that you have a better understanding of where we've been and where we're headed next time we have this forum in 2020.
Mr. Middlebrooks, of your list of priorities, what's at the very top for you?
I think it's important to elect a good team of city council members that have a diverse background and can bring many things to the table. For me, what I bring to the table is being an educator. So, and from what I hear from many of you tonight, the top concern for our community right now is our schools. So that is what I bring to the table. I'm there every day and I see the needs that our children and our schools need. And I will be the advocate for our children.
Mr. Middlebrook, you'll answer our first question from our panel. We'll go over to Matthew Allen for our next question.
This question was submitted by Karen Shook. Her question is, do you intend to continue to run the city on a balanced budget should you be elected?
Absolutely.
You have 54 seconds left.
But there are many ways we can raise revenue. Like I said, I'm not out to cut services. I believe we need to look at raising the impact fees for new development. That is long overdue. I believe we need to renegotiate some of our contracts. As Kurt mentioned earlier, we need to look at some shared services among over-the-mountain communities. That can increase our bargaining power when we go to negotiate city services.
You have another comment? Are you done?
I'm done.
Don't let me cut you off. If you have more time left, you use it if you like. You good?
I'm good.
Very good. Matthew, another question now to Jason DeLuca.
This question was anonymously submitted to us. The question goes like this. Seldom does any leader have enough money to satisfy all funding requests before them. Please indicate how you determine what budget items to fund in priority and your thought process for working through the requirements.
Sure. Well, that's a great question. I think, number one, if you look at how the city spends, as public safety is, as mentioned earlier, is the largest expenditure and is the top priority. One of the things that I proposed over the course of this campaign is reaching out into everyday citizens on an annual basis through citizen survey. There's a lot of folks who speak up on certain issues, some that may be more loud than others, but what about how we're tackling city services? And a lot of cities have adopted surveys in terms of how they prioritize, how they spend, just because they get a better feel for where the the city should go. So I think that's a down the road improvement area, but I think really categorizing public safety and education and then working down through public works.
We now go to John Anderson, and Mr. DeLuca, you'll answer his first question.
Mr. DeLuca, you have lived in Hoover only a little more than a year. Do you believe you have lived here long enough to truly understand Hoover residents' needs and be able to represent the residents of Hoover, many of whom have lived here much longer than you?
That's right. Good question. And I think, when you look at my time in Hoover, what my wife and I represent is not only what Hoover is today, but what Hoover will continue to be. Hoover is a city that's grown and that's had families come to town and want to raise their families, and I'm no different. If you look at my track record of involvement in communities, not only in this one, but in others that I have grown up in, I have been active and engaged. And the issues and opportunities that I have seen in the past year are clear. And as somebody who's been here a year can see them, somebody who's been here 20 plus years can see them. I'm not one to wait and hope that somebody else tackles it. I want to lend my skills and background to address the issues that we have, because I think I can lend good expertise and service. I've been out in the community with myself and other volunteers knocking on over 2,000 doors, and some of the great conversations I've had is speaking to voters and what concerns them.
John, another question, this one for Casey Middlebrooks.
Yes, Mr. Middlebrooks, you have been a strong advocate for increasing funding for Hoover schools, yet you also are employed by the school system. Some people say that represents a conflict of interest. How do you respond to that?
John, I researched that quite extensively before I announced my candidacy. I called the Secretary of State's office. I spoke with my principal. I spoke with Dr. Murphy. I spoke with city leaders. None of them said there was a conflict of interest. As I remind everyone, I was a city employee for 11 years. I've been an educator for 9 years. To me, that's a pretty 50-50 split there. So, I have allegiances to the whole city of Hoover and to you guys. You're my main concern. I want to represent you.
Janet Turner has the microphone now. Janet, your question for Mr. Middlebrooks.
First, I want to acknowledge the Hoover High School band parents I see wandering in after the showcase tonight. Thank you for figuring out how to be two places in one night. My question is for both of you and Mr. Middlebrooks first. I've heard some voters struggling with who to vote for in place 6. Why should voters vote for you for city council? What useful experience, knowledge, or perspective do you bring?
As I mentioned before, I've been servicing this community for 20 years. I believe that speaks volumes over a 1 year of service. I have 2 kids. I'm a father. I have more life experiences than Mr. DeLuca. And I think my experience in the schools will bring a much needed perspective to our council and to our city leadership. I'm so tired of outside organizations mandating stuff for our public education, and they have never stepped foot inside of the classroom. I can bring that perspective to our city.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. DeLuca, you have your minute to answer the question and an additional 30 seconds. Is that correct? Because he didn't compare himself to you and which he might name, and that's the rules of the game. So you have 90 seconds, sir.
Some voters are struggling with who to vote for in place 6. Why should voters vote for you for city council? What useful experience, knowledge, or perspective do you bring?
Well, one of the things that I have been involved in is I got my first job in high school really was bussing tables at a golf resort in Florida. I've held continuous full-time employment since then, and I've managed my first hotel at 24 years old. I'm very fluent in managing teams, dealing with financials, and a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is not curriculum-based, it's more financial-based, of finding financial solutions to the city school system while balancing and not cutting from city services or just proposing tax increases to address the challenges. The other thing too is working with people. I manage a staff of 20 to 30 people, and I believe that if I can work with the counterparts in the council, city leadership, and our other boards is a huge plus. I am a proponent for schools. I want what's best for school system, and I want to make sure that I can be a voice not only for parents but for all residents.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you. Now we'll ask the candidates for place 7 on the Hoover City Council to come to the podium, Mr. John Green and Mr. Robin Schultz. Pick your podiums, gentlemen, and welcome. Thank you for being here. Let's begin with Mr. Green. You have 2 minutes for an opening statement. They'll tell you when your time is up right here at the table. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I want to touch on 3 areas I've thought about with my life I'd like to share with you. Personal, professional, and political. Personal, I am married. Been married for 37 years now to my wife, Melody Green, who is here tonight. We have 4 children. 4 of our children went through Hoover City Schools. We lived in the Camelot Woods area of Bluff Park. We've lived there for 35 years. I'd like to tell the story that everybody's excited about their starter house. I was certainly excited about our starter house, but as it's looking more and more like it, I think that's going to be our finisher house. We've been very happy there and got great neighbors and love that location. Professional, I'm retired from Birmingham Police Department. I'm also retired from after 20 years of service, I'm also retired from the Army Active Duty, National Guard, and Reserve with 40 years of service there. And politically, I think I can sum that up in my thoughts in political life. I can sum it up in 4 words. I work for you. Thank you.
Mr. Schultz, you also have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Robin Schultz. I'm asking for your vote for Hoover City Council Place 7. Been a Hoover resident for 27 years. I've been married to my wife, Mary Beth, who grew up in Hoover and Bluff Park. I put 3 children through the Hoover City school system, and I have 1 grandchild in the Hoover City school system. I know firsthand the importance of schools to the city because as the schools go, so does the city. I've attended Board of Education regular meetings since 2007. In that time, I've attended more regular meetings than all of these candidates combined, more than any current council member, and more than any current board member. In 2006, I founded bluffparkal.org, where we not only talked about problems, but we also fixed them by being an advocate for the community with city leaders. We helped bring the police substation to Bluff Park. We helped keep the High Country 5K race in Bluff Park. We helped renovate the Shades Mountain Plaza by bringing it to the attention of city leaders. In 2013, I received the Friends of Hoover Hero Award for my work in keeping the Hoover school buses rolling. I founded Learn to Be the Light, where we refurbish PCs for low-income Hoover City school students. We want to keep them on the same level playing field as their more affluent counterparts. I'm a small business owner that provides IT services to small and medium businesses, and we specialize in cybersecurity, preventing credit card breaches. I understand the challenges and opportunities that technology brings. Because of that, I was named to the Hoover City Schools Superintendent's Advisory Council, their technology group. I'm committed to adequate school funding, continued superior public safety, responsible growth, and outstanding infrastructure. Anybody can be a talker. I've got a proven record of being a doer.
Heck, I can be a talker. Gentlemen, thank you both. I'm going to ask you a question that's not scripted. I'm not asking anyone else this. Mr. Green, you go first. And remember, we have a minute now instead of 2. Why do you want to serve on the Hoover City Council in the first place?
You know, I look back at the history of my life, and I have always enjoyed public service. I wanted to join the police department to serve the public. I wanted to join the National Guard and Army Reserve, my active duty to serve the public. I just always enjoyed serving the public.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz, why do you want this job?
Mike, that's a great question. I've been involved in the community for the last 15 years, and I've always thought, where am I more effective? Am I more effective on the outside where I'm not limited as to what I can say or what I can do, or am I more effective on the inside where I can make a bigger difference? I decided at this time that I think I can be more effective on the inside.
Very good. We're going to shift over to our panel now. We'll let you both answer these questions. We'll begin with John Anderson, and Mr. Schultz, you'll answer this first question from John.
One of these gentlemen, I won't say which one, asked me to ask them if they love Hoover, but that was a little too easy question, I think, so I'll pass on that one. And move on to a question from David Bradley. It's the same for both of you, but Mr. Schultz, you can answer first. I've heard that some candidates have said a quick fix for the Hoover Board of Education funding issue is for the city to begin charging for garbage and trash pickup. If the council adopted this provision, it would provide about $8 million. Would you favor this idea?
No.
You say why?
I don't feel that is a solution for it. I'll be short and to the point. No.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. That's no. Mr. Green, same question. Do you need to repeat it or are you fine?
No.
All right, go ahead.
Call that. As far as paying for any garbage pickup to fund anything, I don't think the majority of citizens would be in favor of that. So, in keeping with my thoughts of our local citizens, no, I would not be in favor of that at all.
Everyone, thank you. Let's get the microphone over to Janet Turner. And Mr. Green, Janet's first question is for you.
I have the same question for both of you, and this is from Crystal Johnson. As a candidate, how do you plan on helping small and independent businesses grow? What opportunities do you see that will help those businesses?
What ways do I see in helping small independent businesses grow? Certainly, one of the Hoover Council members who spoke tonight mentioned the Chamber of Commerce. I'm certainly behind that. As far as oftentimes their tax dollars are spent to help private businesses get started and grow. That's a very, very slippery slope, and that's something I would consider, but only with business community's input, the citizens' input, and other members of the council.
I really appreciate that question because I am a small business. And when I first started the business, I was with a company for 15 years that went out of business just within a 10-day period. I've been running my business part-time for 15 years and decided to make it a full-time business. There's no roadmap. There's nothing that tells you where to go. And I would definitely be in support of the city having workshops for small businesses and telling them which way to go, because that's something that we were just faced with, and the city didn't help with that. So I think that having workshops would definitely be in assistance.
Matthew Allen, we'll have our last question for you two gentlemen, and Matthew, your question is for Robin Schultz.
This question comes from Sarah Simmons. Please share your plans for future community planning and how you will work together with the school board, developers, and business leaders.
In 2003, there was already a master plan that had been worked with over a period of 2 years that the then council decided to do away with. I spoke to one of the authors of that plan a few days ago, and he told me how much was put into that. They had spoken to business leaders, they had spoken to the school system, they had spoken and made the plan, and that plan was just put aside. I believe in communication. I believe in all members being at the table and bringing that plan up and bringing that plan up to date.
One more question for Mr. Green.
This comes from Linda Chastain in Bluff Park. Is it possible to delay the construction of additional phases of the sports complex when this first phase of the $3+ million Hoover building is completed until city funding of other projects is finalized? This to include a delay of hiring the company to manage the facility.
Was the question, is it possible to delay part of the construction? I do not believe that there is time to do that now. We are really in a push by opening late 2017, and with the $78 million bond issue, I don't see any way that we could hold up on that project now. And I will say, the last part of that, I was the lone council member that voted against that project for only one reason. I didn't feel the citizens were given time to review the details of that project, nor was I.
John Green, Robin Schultz, thank you, gentlemen, very much. I believe we have three more gentlemen to hear from this evening, the candidates for mayor for the city of Hoover, Frank Mercado, Gary Ivey, and Steve McClinton. Gentlemen, if you would please come up to the podiums. A reminder that when we have finished asking questions of the mayoral candidates, they will each have a 1-minute closing comment, and we'll also bring back each council member. All of you will have 1 minute to come back up and leave our audience with one final statement. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for being here. Let's go in the order of names I mentioned. Mr. Mercado, would you please begin? Each of you have 2 minutes. I want to make sure everyone is clear. Your time cues are down front. Hold up the yellow card, please, that shows that you have 10 seconds, and then you'll see time, and the timer in the middle will say time. And of course, 2 minutes goes pretty fast. But each of you have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Mr. Frank Mercado, would you please begin?
Right, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you for those that are hosting this. I'm Frank Mercado, a 40-year resident of the city of Hoover, and a 42-year member of the Hoover Fire Department. I have 3 children and 9 grandchildren. 6 of those grandchildren are either in Hoover schools or going through Hoover schools. So let me just take just a few minutes. We're going to talk about issues tonight, but let's talk about the differences in me and my opponents. We're the 6th largest city in the state. We've got a $147 million budget, 733 employees. We're one of the largest businesses in Alabama, one of the largest employers in Alabama. Do you think we need full-time leadership? Well, if you do, I'm your guy. You see, the other 2 candidates up here, they're committed to their businesses. I'm committed full-time to the city of Hoover. They stated that they have a business that they have to run, and they're going to incorporate that into running the city of Hoover. You can't have 2 masters. You can't have a ship without a rudder. I'll be a full-time mayor with 150% commitment to you. You pay for a full-time mayor. You deserve a full-time mayor. Now let me ask you this. Do you want a mayor who's beholden to unions and tax and special interest groups? I'm probably not your guy then. The people that are voting for me, the people sort of supporting me, the people like you and you and you, the citizens of Hoover, or my friends or my family. Those are the people that are out in the community that know the importance of a school system and how important it is to building the community. Those are the types of people that are supporting me. And that's who, when you go around the neighborhoods all through Hoover, Alabama, you see Frank Mercado signs. It's people just like you. I'm not supported by the unions. I'm not supported by the political action committees, and I'm certainly not supported by special interest groups that are tied to the Sports Center. Vote for Frank Mercado August 23rd.
Thank you, sir. Gary Ivey, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And I'll try to make mine, I'll say this time. Number one, I'm more than a full-time mayor. I do own some other businesses that I'm rarely at. I've got extremely good management. I'm not going to make any apologies for that. I've made much and do make much larger budgets than were referred to a minute ago. Every year, they balance. I've been a resident of Hoover for 33 years. I've run a business in Hoover for 33 years. Our budget has been balanced ever since we took office. I got public P&Z in '92, president of the city council in 2002, and then took over Tony's deal and was unopposed as mayor. We've never, ever, and I'm in complete agreement. I think one thing everybody's agreeing on tonight is the schools have some funding problems. And I would love, I don't know if Dr. Murphy's still here, I think she is, but she has done an incredible job getting a lot of stuff turned around. But what I'd like to see is we don't have to be called over their money,
But, you know, we get to talking about capital projects. Maybe we could look at their capital project fund, our capital project fund, itemize what's needed most. Because every department, promise me, when you're mayor of a city this size, there's not enough money for any of them. It just, everybody needs more manpower, more equipment, more everything. And we feel like we've done a good job with it. I'm actually standing on my record. I think I've got a good past record. I am a full-time mayor. When you're mayor, you're on call 24 hours a day. And I appreciate your vote on Tuesday.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Steve McClinton, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement, sir.
Well, I'm Steve. My name is Steve McClinton. I'm running for mayor. My wife, Stephanie, and I have lived here in Hoover for over 18 years. We have 3 children that are in the Hoover City School System. Macy and Cooper go to Hoover High School. Our son, Hudson, our youngest, goes to Deer Valley Elementary. Let me give you 3 quick reasons why I want your vote for mayor of Hoover. The first is very personal. I'm the only mayoral candidate here who believes in the school system enough to put my own children in the system. I'm the only mayoral candidate that has an established, proven track record with the school system and its leadership, from the classroom teacher all the way to the superintendent. Schools are not just some campaign issue I came up with 6 months ago. I've lived it and breathed it, and my track record proves it for over 10 years. There is no comparison. Number 2, a professional note. As a retirement planner for the past 20 years, I'm a steward of other people's money. I'm entrusted by hundreds of families and businesses with tens of millions of dollars. What I do requires a lot of trust and transparency, and I promise to bring that same trust and transparency to our city government. Third, I have a campaign motto called One Hoover. It's not just a slogan, it's what Hoover should be and has become. Whether you're from the original families that founded this community, or you're someone who just came here yesterday, I promise that your voice will be heard in this government. Far too long, over the past course of a couple of years, I've seen neighborhood versus neighborhood. I've seen apartment owner versus homeowner, and I've also seen this us versus them mentality. True leadership would not let that happen. I promise you that I'm the only mayoral candidate that has the ability to bring all that together. So I ask for your vote for mayor of Hoover.
Let's stay with you, Mr. McClinton, and come back this way. And all of you answer this question, please. If elected on your first day in office or your first day of the new term, what is the first problem in Hoover that you would tackle your first day on the job? Sir, if you'll continue. Yes, Mr. McClinton.
First day school funding. I would give the superintendent and department heads, there is no silver bullet or easy answer. There is no arbitrary number that can be given, and the schools do not have enough money. But what you have to do is get everybody together in the same room, peel back the onion, and find and ask each department what is a want, what is a need, and start from there.
Mr. Abbey, first day of a new term, what would be your main problem you tackle on that day?
I've had the same priority for a long time because I think our school system is an integral part of our city. It's something we got to have as a part. But it's not just the school system that makes this city. It's you folks, it's the roads, it's the parks, it's the police department, it's the fire department. People need to be able to feel safe to go out. And right now, especially in the state of the country that we're in, and y'all just flip up, if Mike gets tongue-tied news, it won't be good news. And we've got to protect our citizens, we've got to protect our kids, we got a few school systems, we immediately put police officers in every school. It's all important, and it's all got to work together.
Mr. Mercado, first day on the job in the mayor's chair, what would be the first task you tackle?
Actually, it'll be 3 things. Number 1, I'll be a full-time mayor. Number 2, I will call Dr. Murphy and I'll set an appointment for 30 days for us to meet. And during that 30 days, I'll be able to look at budget that we have. Right now, we've got an 18-month-old budget. No decisions can be made on an 18-month-old budget. So I'll look at that. In 30 days, we'll have an opportunity to sit down and actually discuss real numbers. And then we're going to talk about a master plan. 30 days, I'm going to evaluate my staff. I'm going to identify the individual that I think can be the project manager to put this tool together that we've talked about, master planning. So those are the first 3 things that I would do.
We'll now go to our panel for questions. We'll begin with Matthew Allen. Gentlemen, keep in mind 1 minute to answer these questions. And the first question will go to Mr. Ivy. Matthew, your question.
This was submitted anonymously. What is being done or can be done to promote the entrepreneurial spirit here in Hoover with more independently owned restaurants and food and beverage?
Matthew, could you repeat that?
I'm sorry.
Get closer to the microphone, please. That would help.
What is being done or can be done to promote the entrepreneurial spirit here in Hoover with more independently owned restaurants and food and beverage venues?
I've got some list here, just stuff here on Range Road. We've got very few empty boxes. We've got some huge economic boxes that we're looking at. Unfortunately, I can't talk about those tonight because it's threatening. We won't talk to us anymore. We got the new field in Strain. We work with them. It's not entrepreneurial. We got the 2 first freestanding ER rooms in the state of Alabama. I got one on each side of town. They're going to save lives. And that's the type of thing that we're pursuing. We do not think Councilman Green said put you on a slippery slope. We will help with turn lanes. We'll try to help with construction. We, till this day, do not have to give anybody any new money. We give them parts of new tax money. But we haven't had to give anybody any money to come to Hoover. They want to come to Hoover because of what Hoover is.
Matthew, your next question is for Steve McClinton.
This was also submitted anonymously. You laid out planning as one of the key issues of your campaign. What specifically do you intend to do to address the need for a comprehensive growth plan for the city if elected? You have laid out planning as one of the key campaign issues. What specifically do you intend to do to address the need for a comprehensive growth plan for the city if elected?
I like the model that Dr. Murphy used. Dr. Murphy, the superintendent of the city schools, had to deliver bad news. She took 6 months community outreach, got buy-in. I think for any kind of buy-in for this community, it can't be just 7 men and a mayor. It has to be a buy-in of the community. What we want to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. What kind of industry we want to recruit, and what kind of city we want to be. So from that aspect, that's the first thing I'm going to do is a community outreach to get the buy-in of the community.
Matthew, a question for Frank Mercado.
Another anonymous question. What are your ideas for fostering the creation of entertainment districts within the city?
You know, one of the things that I've talked about is I've visited the homes in Hoover over the past 6 months, is developing, where is a downtown Hoover? Does anybody know where it is? You know, we've never thought about that in Hoover. We can do those kinds of things. It's called retrofitting suburbia. You know, we could go in and plan a downtown, and with that downtown, we could bring in something that would be really neat, a fine arts center. Wouldn't you love to be able to not go downtown Birmingham or to Homewood to see the Alabama Symphony, or to see a great musical, or see a great Broadway show? So what I would do, I would develop downtown Hoover with input from everyone here, and I would certainly hope to try and bring us a great fine arts center.
John Anderson will ask our next questions of the candidates. His first one is for Steve McClinton.
Mr. McClinton, this is a question from Michelle Fender. She said, budgeting is a critical role in this position as mayor. Please give specific examples of the largest budgets you have managed and what company was involved.
I will not give client names, but I'll tell you I managed $35 million of other people's money. So I take it very seriously. Whether it be a client that has $25 or $2.5 million, they're all treated the same. So I do have the experience to do this.
All right, John, another question now for Frank Mercado.
Mr. Mercado, this is an anonymous question. I'm sorry, this is not anonymous, this is my question. The Hoover Firefighters Association, the union representing Hoover firefighters, has endorsed Gary Ivey for mayor. As a longtime Hoover firefighter and fire marshal, how do you feel about their decision to endorse someone other than you?
Thank you for asking me that question. I've kept my mouth shut for 6 months. I was never in the union. I told the union I did not want their support and I did not want their PAC money. The union leadership would never consider me one of their own. The rank and file firefighters, they do. 17 people voted out of about a 90-member organization to back the individual we're talking about. We've got 175 members of Hoover Fire Department. That's hardly representative of the union and surely not representative of Hoover Fire Department. It's as simple as this. It's a labor and management issue. I was on the other side of the table on very difficult situations, but I had to make the best decisions that affected the city of Hoover and to make sure that you got quality service when those fire trucks and rescue trucks rolled up into your yard. Hoover Fire Department did not endorse anyone.
John, one more question for you. This is for Gary Ivey.
Mayor Ivey, in the 20 years or plus that you've served as either mayor, city council president, or chairman of the Hoover Planning and Zoning Commission, the city has added more than 30,000 residents. Some people say that the growth has been too fast and that the city's roads and schools have been unable to keep up, and that you are too cozy with developers. First, do you think the city's growth rate has been reasonable? And second, what have you done in the past and what will you do in the future to manage the city's residential growth?
Maybe I can answer that with a couple of things that have been addressed tonight. We talked about there's not a comprehensive plan. There's a comprehensive plan. And by the way, I've got some in the back if you'd like to have one. We look at every deal. People have the right to sell the property. We try to be fair with this one project that only get did. 3,300 home project to 1,100 home project. We took front door fees on the builders from $1,500 to $3,000. It all goes to the school. Since instruments talk about it, here's a comprehensive Hoover plan that's been in play. Here's our emergency operation plan that's in play. Here's our disaster relief plan that's been in play. And if it'll take you night, I've got a bicycle truck plan. And it's been,
All right, thank you, sir. Janet Turner, you'll ask our last questions this evening of the candidates for mayor. Your first question will go to Gary Ivey.
Mayor Ivey, this first question is from Dennis Quirk. It says, Mayor Ivey, you are no doubt aware of and have seen copies of Dr. Murphy's presentation on the budget crisis facing the Hoover City School District. Are you now willing to increase funding to the school district from Hoover City revenue?
I'm now, and I've always been willing to sit down and talk to Dr. Murphy about the budget. I think it's something we need to work together on for all of us. We've got a strong, viable city. You don't become the #1 city in the state of Alabama 2 years in a row with all the problems that are being perceived here tonight.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mercado, this next question from Janet Turner is for you.
The next question is for Mr. Mercado. Mr. McClendon will have the same question, and it's anonymous. It appears that the school district has some immediate financial needs in order to maintain its excellent schools without cutting programs and enlarging class sizes. There are also much larger financial needs anticipated in the coming years, with debt service, continued growth in the city, and overcrowded schools. Do you believe school funding is a city government issue? And if so, how do you plan to address both the short-term and long-term needs of the school district? Mr. Mercado.
You know, I've met with Dr. Murphy, I've met with school teachers, I've met with parents, And their number one problem, they're afraid that their school system is going to go down. So yes, I am in favor of supporting our school financially. And we can do better than less than 2% of our budget. You know, I'm not in favor of just dumping money on a system. What I want to do, let's look across the board. There are lots of ways that we can solve this financial crisis, and I'm willing to work with them. Let's look at everything. Let's put everything on the board. You know, I've talked about this. I said, you know, the schools, they cut grass, we cut grass. They work on dump trucks and buses and cars, and we work on fire trucks and buses and dump trucks and all of those things. Let's see what we can do to eliminate the duplication of services. We've got to look across the board, folks, but the schools are very important. If we don't take care of our schools, we're going to lose property value, we're going to lose businesses in our city, and we've got to put that as our number one priority.
Mr. McClinton, same question. 1 minute.
It's not real quick, I'll do it again. It appears that the school district has some immediate financial needs in order to maintain its excellent schools without cutting programs and enlarging class sizes. There are also much larger financial needs anticipated in the coming years, with debt service, continued growth in the city, and overcrowded schools. Do you believe school funding is a city government issue? And if so, how do you plan to address both the short-term and long-term needs of the school district?
Yes, schools are not just a government issue, it's a community and city issue. People move here for the schools, and people leave here because of the schools. So the schools being of the highest quality are the top order. People move because of great school systems. We've had 21,000 people move here in 12 years, and it's not just for retail, and it's not just for fast food, it's for the schools. Now, to answer the problem, it's short-term and long-term. And I don't have that much time to say this, but the only way to do it is to change the ideology. Right now, we have a mindset that the administration does not want to talk with the school system about how to solve these problems, short-term and long-term. There is a way, but it's just about getting two groups of people together to solve the problem. It doesn't mean we got to cut funding from other sources, but it means we take it seriously and make education a non-negotiable priority.
All right, that concludes our questions. Gentlemen, stay in place if you would. We're going to have Don't leave, folks. This is going to be the best part right here. Voters are going to the polls 1 week from today. Is that right? So you each have 1 minute to convince all these folks to vote for you. And we're going to ask the mayor candidates first to each take 1 minute to have a closing statement, and then we'll ask, in the same order as we did the questioning for each council candidate, to do the same thing. Let's just go from this way to that way. Mr. Mercado, 1 minute in closing, please.
You know, we talked about who's the best and who's got the most experience. And I told you about my experience and all. But let me just read some things from Chief John Wingate, the current fire chief of the city of Hoover, confirmed by Mayor Ivey as well. This is what he wrote on my evaluation. Frank is a key member of the command staff, and I depend on his expertise and willingness to assist in serious projects within the fire department in the city. I've moved Frank over operations of the fire department. He's trusted, and he carries out assignments with effectiveness and thoroughness. I feel Frank handles his duties in a manner that complements not only the fire department, but also the city of Hoover. I bring expertise to the job. I know what we need to do. I've done it. I've managed people across the board in emergency situations and in planned exercises. I am the best man for the job. Vote for Frank Brocado on August the 23rd, Mayor of Hoover. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ivey, Gary Ivey, 1 minute, sir.
Again, I just like I said, I didn't like running my reputation. Well, I make one comment. That's not my handwriting. That's from Chief Ivey right there. So, but anyway, that doesn't make any difference as far as Chief wrote it. I don't evaluate anybody but directors. But so that's a little bit interesting. But I do care about the city. I love the city a lot. I have one thing, since I do have a minute. Part of the problem you get into when you ask about these houses is when you do these strategic plans, you end up in situations like in 1982, when you pick up a piece of property, there was a piece of property zoned for a lot of apartments. And that was probably appropriate. There wasn't a school system. There wasn't a Lakeside. There wasn't a Ross Bridge. There wasn't a map. So you have to be very careful when you lock yourself into this zoning to what you're doing, because what's good today might not be good tomorrow.
Mr. Wright, thank you. And Mr. McClinton, 1 minute, sir.
Thank you again for having us here tonight. And I will say this very briefly. It's about who you believe will represent you, who will understand both sides of the equation, different ideologies, different cultures, and different competing mindsets to accomplish one goal, to have one Hoover, a united Hoover, to solve these problems. There is no easy quick fix, there's no silver bullet, there's no magic number I can give you. All I can tell you is I have a proven track record to bring people together and solve the problem. I heard it say that you can manage people. You don't manage people, you manage money. But you lead people and you believe in people. And that's what I do when I come to Hoover. Every day, what I do in the schools, what I believe in, what I see in our community, I ask and humbly request that you vote for me to be your mayor and representative. Thank you very much.
Steve McClinton, Gary Ivey, thank you very much. 1 minute each for our council candidates. Would you please come up, gentlemen? And let's go in this order. Mr. Trey Lott, would you please go first? Remember, it's 1 minute. So there you go.
When I first ran for city council 12 years ago, I made a couple promises. One, if we would stop the bickering at City Hall, quit acting like we didn't matter. I kept that promise. I promised that we would have fiscal responsibility at City Hall, and we'd have a balanced budget, and I kept that promise. Most of all, I promised to do one really big thing, and that's always vote for what's best for the city as a whole, regardless of the consequences to me. Because some people don't like that. I've done that, I kept that promise, and I will continue to do that. What's best for the city, that's number one. Thank you, and I ask for your vote.
Kurt Posey?
The difference in me is that you prepared me to do this job. I've written a lot of things, and people say that I write well, and that's because of Miss Green, and that's because of Dr. Williams right over here educating me in the Hoover City school system. What I'm going to do is I'm going to vote on what's morally right, not what's politically correct. So when someone asks me at a meeting, don't cut down the trees that are separating my house from the Met, I'm not going to vote to cut down the trees that separate their house from the Met. Because what is morally right is what brings us together. And because when I look out here, I don't just see votes, I see friends. I see my parents. I see my teachers. And that's the way I look at you. I look at all of you as my friends, my neighbors. And what I want to do is I want to represent you because you prepared me for that job. Thank you.
And Mr. Joe Reeves.
If you're looking for a candidate with excellent qualifications and experience who treats each issue objectively and fairly, who actually does the work of the council and attends the council meetings, and is very enthusiastic about making Hoover an even better place to live, to work, to play, and to run your business, I ask that you vote for Joe Reeves, Hoover City Council, Place 1, in the August 23rd election.
Gentlemen, thank you. If you'll exit down these steps. Place 2 candidates. Let's begin 1 minute each, gentlemen. Gene Smith, would you go first?
I would like first to thank all of y'all for staying here so long. I saw that a few people have abandoned the ship, but we're doing pretty good. I've lived in the city or worked for the city for 53 years. I currently am a small business owner in this city. A friend of mine and I own a destination place within Hoover. One of the things that the city can do to help small businesses is to maintain the demographics the average median income in Hoover is over $80,000. As long as we can keep families with a median income like that, then that's a great opportunity for small business to want to come. It's good for big boxers who want to come. I would like to thank you for being here and ask a vote for Gene Smith, place 2.
And Mr. Sam Sweeney.
I share Gene's comments that I appreciate everybody staying to the very end. I know we've been here for a while. I'm sure most of you are ready to get home. But there were 5 reasons I decided to run for the city council. Number 1, being the lack of funding for our school system. Number 2, lack of a comprehensive city master plan. They say there's one, I haven't yet to see it. Number 3, lack of transparency from our city leadership. Number 4, the need for smart growth initiatives moving forward. And number 5, making sure we provide our full support to our public safety departments. If you share some of these same concerns with me, I ask that you please consider voting Sam Sweeney, place 2. Thank you again.
Thank you, gentlemen. Place 3 candidates. John Lida, would you go first, please? 1 minute.
Thank you, Mike. In 2012, I came and I asked for you to send me to City Hall to be what I called then a next generation leader for Hoover. For the last 4 years, I've been almost 20 years younger than my nearest colleague. And so I've represented a unique interest and a unique perspective on what I consider a changing Hoover. For those of you who lived here for some time, you know that Hoover is not what it was 10 years ago. I'm here to tell you that a growing city is a changing city, and it won't be the same city in 10 years as it is today. So I want to continue to bring that unique perspective that I bring, the conservative pro-business mindset that keeps what's best for Hoover at the forefront of every decision I make. I want to continue to be the top communicator from City Hall. When you think about the face of the Hoover City Council and Hoover government, I want you to think about me. When you think about who you want to call or who you need someone to call on, I want you to call on me. I ask for your vote on August 23rd. Thank you.
And Mr. Arnold Singer.
The city of Hoover gave birth to Hoover City Schools. The city annexes property and has done so. The city has grown. Hoover City Schools is not funded in relationship to the school population. We need mediation. I suggest we bring back as a mediator to help the funding the father of the Hoover City Schools, Frank Skinner. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, place 4 candidates. We'll begin with Sergeant Major Michael Holt.
Well, the first thing I want to make sure that I remind everybody is there is a tax coming up for renewal. Please go tell everyone about that. It's imperative for us to keep the school systems funded properly. So if you're looking for the candidate in place 4 that's proven he can make tough, hard decisions and will stand up for what is right no matter what, then I ask you to consider voting for me, Mike Holt, as your representative. I will give Hoover a master plan that is adopted and utilized. I will commit to funding education and public safety at the same time. And I will do everything I can to make sure that the sports complex turns into a revenue-generating, positive growth for our city. If you need more information, I know all of it wasn't covered tonight by all of the candidates. I have a website. It's holtforhoover.com. Please go to that. Thank you and good night.
Mike Shaw, 1 minute, sir.
Mike Shaw, place 4, but August 23rd. That's, getting used to saying that over and over, and that's because it's important. I'm just going to convey how excited I am. We have so many great things happening in Hoover. We have so many things that are precious to us that we enjoy every day, and the most important part is the people. I've had so much fun getting to know the people, getting to know you, what's important to you, and it would be an honor to serve you in place 4. And I would just ask that you really consider where we're going. It's start thinking some ideas, because this next phase is going to be exciting, and I hope to be a part of that. And I would ask for your vote, ask for your trust, and I'm excited to be a part of this, and I look forward to it. Mike Shaw, place 4, electmikeshaw.com.
Thank you, gentlemen. Here again are the candidates for place 5, Dan Ellis and Derek Murphy. Dan Ellis, would you go first, please? 1 minute.
Absolutely. I certainly don't want to keep you guys from the update on the Olympics, so I'll make this short and sweet. Thank you, friends, neighbors, colleagues, for allowing me the opportunity to share my thoughts and ideas with you tonight. I'm committed to keep Hoover as one of the top places to live in the state and throughout the U.S. Through my 20 years of business experience, a balanced approach combined with conservative values, through economic development, sustainable growth, we will continue to make Hoover the best place to live, to go to school, and to raise a family. In the past, I've been the Chamber of Commerce president. Despite a recession, under my leadership, we sustained the largest growth in revenue in the Chamber's history. We had increased membership. People want to eat. They want to shop in Hoover. It is important. Economic development is the meaning of all for our tax revenues, and I am committed to ensure that we have sustainable economic growth for the success of Hoover. Vote for Dan, place 5.
And 1 minute for you, Derek Murphy.
Derek Murphy. I didn't want to start off by running for city council one day. I wanted to prove to the city of Hoover that I want to serve. That's why I started off on the zoning board and served 5 years on the school board. And in May I came off as board president. But I've seen a lot of things over that period of time. Our school district has lost $15 million less revenue than we're receiving while increasing in kids. And we're at a tough point right now because we are growing, and we'll continue to grow. And it's time for planning. It's time to be really serious about our next level. Now, I'm an engineer by trade, so I'm used to revitalization and necessary things that need to be done in order to make that happen. But we cannot continue to cover up the fact that we're growing and we're losing revenue in all different levels and expect to maintain a great system while other systems are competing heavily with us and taking our teachers and moving along the way. Thank you all so much. Derek Murphy for place 5. Go Bucks and go Jags.
Our candidates for place 6 on the council, Jason DeLuca and Casey Middlebrooks. Both of you have 1 minute. Jason DeLuca, would you go first, please?
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to you all. And on behalf of my wife and I want to thank you all for making Hoover what it is. Despite the challenges and opportunities we discussed today, it is a great city, and it's attractive for families that want to call Hoover home. I've been an outsider looking in for many years, and I know Hoover, what it has done and what it can become. Despite it all, I'm overly optimistic. I'm optimistic in the opportunities that we have ahead and the folks that have stepped up to take on the task. When you look at the challenges for the next 4 years, it stems around financial issues in terms of how do we keep the city balanced with city services, public safety, and finding additional revenue for public education, as well as how we grow. I contend that when you look at the background of myself, of what I've worked for and my involvement in the community, you'll see that initiative and that leadership. Next Tuesday, I humbly ask for your vote. My name is Jason DeLuca. Thank you so much for the time.
And Casey Middlebrooks, you have 1 minute, sir.
I enter this race to make a positive change for the whole of Hoover. I've met with just about every city department head. I've talked to thousands of citizens and discussed plans with city planners across the nation. If you're looking for a politician that wants to add a check mark on their political resume, I'm not that person. If you do want someone who will represent you that has proven leadership skills with the knowledge and experience to go to work on day one to provide security for your family, advocate for our schools, protect our property values, recruit economic development and diversity, enrich our historic neighborhoods, cultivate opportunities for our 55-plus community, support and defend our first responders, and foster transparency and community input. And please be sure to vote for Middlebrooks for place 6.
Jason DeLuca, please here for a thank you note. Coming to the podiums again from place 7 for the Hoover City Council, John Green and Robin Schultz. Mr. Green, would you please go first with your 1 minute, sir?
Thank you. You know, as I think about what we want today in a public official, 3 things come to my mind. Number 1, we want someone that's honest. Number 2, we want someone that will be our voice. Number 3, we want someone that will stay the course no matter what the adversity may be. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that has been my record over the last 8 years. And if you re-elect John Green, he will continue to go down that road. Thank you.
Robin Schultz, 1 minute for you, sir, in closing.
In 2006, long before Facebook, I brought Hoover's first community website, blockparkal.org. In 2007, we added an online forum where members could talk to one another. In 2008, we gave an avenue for candidates to be asked questions online via the forum. In 2012, I brought you the first live municipal candidate forum. What all these have in common is communication and transparency. I commit to holding monthly meetings with the community where you can voice your concerns. I commit to 2 terms. I commit to never taking money from builders or developers, PACs, or any other special interests. I commit to making our priorities straight again. I commit to doing just what I've done for over the last decade, doing, not just talking. Thank you very much.
Robin Schultz, John Green, thank you both. We are within about 2 minutes of our hoped ending time. I guess that's one of the successes tonight. But the real success is this. I don't have a vote in Hoover. I will not be voting for any of these candidates, but you will. Some people will be going to the polls in other communities, in other states, in our state, and across the country, voting in many cases for the lesser of 2 evils. You don't have that. You have a whole slew of men here who obviously care about your community, about your schools, about your city. You're not going to go wrong however you vote, in my opinion. You've got a lot of good men up here. Give them all a big round of applause. Good luck to you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. And thanks to all the sponsors of tonight's event. Good night, everybody.